As the scene opens, 5 tall men are seen walking down the street, all in anger. According to the information, these 5 men were already taken to the hospital and questioned if that was the doing of a dog meets. Jang Seok was grinding with anger, thinking how that man had the courage to do so, and without giving a second thought, he directly headed to their den. The guards were not able to understand why all of them had arrived without giving any prior information. Jang Seok was in no mood for conversation. Without a second thought, he punched the man and headed inside. Sitting on the couch, a man was playing with 2 burls and was astonished to see the presence of the protagonist. Finally, the most awaited man had arrived. Jang Seok again asked him why he was trying to play with the group, and if he really wanted to die. In that situation, Dog Meat was not even judged by his warning and told him that the man he was looking for was not the one he had earlier seen. The man diagnosed as a human, but a demon or Ichinen's crazy dog, was ready to heave everything and over to fight. However, everything changed as he had turned old, losing the spark in his eyes, and it was the reason Dog Meats had denied him the chance to serve under him. Jang Seok felt that he was telling the truth, but being angrier, he called his subordinate to head out and bring his head without any mercy. Orders were followed as commanded, but unexpectedly both of his men attacked directly on him. Dog Meat, which started laughing, stated that he should understand where he was standing. Shoving Jang Seok losing his calm, he started attacking his own men and took them down with just one blow. After a while, standing injured, Dog Meat's mate told him that it was just the beginning, as he had planned something else for him. With a snap of his fingers, he called dozens of men who surrounded the injured protagonist, giving clarification that it was all planned. This time, Dog Meat's mate commanded his men for the task, and as seen, brightness started while Jang Seok boiled in anger. The fight ended after a long while. When the scene changed, Jang Seok was seen walking down the street, holding his heart and gasping to hold his breath. He was trying his best to hold on himself while cussing Dog Meat's mate for what he had done to him. Guessing the condition and realizing that he was not going to survive anymore, he just laid down on the ground. Being a man, he smiled and started remembering how it all started for him. Life was shit as he dropped out from school at the age of 18 and ended up joining the organization. His only way of survival was being indulged in all kinds of dirty things to reach the position he was currently in. He crushed the poor and killed numerous detectives, not even considering that they had a family too. With all those deeds, finally after 20 years of wrongdoings, he was able to attain the position of the ringleader. However, in the end, when he looked at his past, he realized that everything was for nothing. Protagonist was collecting all the memories, realizing that he had not done well. Before he was going to die with tears in his eyes, he asked for another chance to live life again. Before he fell and touched the ground, Jang Seok's eyes shook open as he found himself in an unfamiliar place, wondering if that was the afterlife or something out of nowhere. A voice asked him if he really regretted his life, leaving Jang Seok astonished. Jang Seok was in no mood to answer it, so out of anger he fired off, asking the one who was speaking to come out and show his face. His wish was granted, and when he turned, he found an angel standing right in front of him above the sky. The angel told him that his soul was already corrupted as much as it could. That thing once again reminded and made Jang Seok live his past life right in front of his face, telling him that his soul was surely going to descend into hell for eternity. The 40-year-old man had fear on his face, and so the angel, for that, told him that he was impressed that such a man realized his mistakes at the end. Jang Seok calmed down, remembering the final moment of his life back on the earth, and it was how his eyes turned teary. It was so embarrassing for the man, and tried to clarify his doings. However, after coming back to his senses, he just asked the angel to send him to the hellfire for his bad deeds, but the angel offered him a second life to fulfill his regrets. Jang Seok was left astonished with this declaration and inquired about it. Upon receiving confirmation, he lowered his eyes and started telling God that he was not going to live the life he had lived before, killing and hurting the poor. The angel, having a kind heart with a curious mind, was even willing to know if the sayings of Satan were true. Before granting him the wish, the angel told him that in any case his wrongdoings would not be forgiven, even if he did good in his second life. Just then, before he could comprehend the situation, suddenly a bright light made the protagonist close his eyes. The next moment, when he opened his eyes, he wondered where he was and what had happened while looking at his surroundings. Unbeknownst to himself, his body had already changed, and the moment he saw himself in the mirror, he looked like a pretty young and handsome kid. He was trying to recognize himself when suddenly the phone bell rang. A man from the other side of the call started cussing him, asking him why he had been dumping school for the past few days. Totally unaware of the call, Jang Seok asked for the identity of the man, and it turned out that the man was the dean of the school himself, who again asked him to get back to school immediately. Everything was happening at the speed of light, and when he started connecting the threads from getting a call from the school, heaven, his presence in this home, his memories, and the calendar date, all these things reminded him of what had happened at the White Place. In short, he had turned back to being 18 years old, the time just before he dropped out of school, and that sudden realization made Jang Seok burst into tears. He went on his knees thanking the angel for his deeds and promising to live a decent human life. Jang Seok, as instructed by the dean, started wearing his clothes. After a while he was dressed up in his school clothes, standing tall. He held out with the intention to make everything good for his past deeds and decided to live a general school life, without turning into a gangster. He then passed through the street and a man with yellow hairs called him by his name. That man was identified as the town gangster Hyun. Jang Seok got a flashback that he used to hang out with during his past days, stealing money from the poor. Anyhow, he had planned that he was going to ignore his presence and then just called him by his full name without giving any respect. Hyun had forgotten what age he was currently in, and that call made the gangster feel a little disrespected. He approached Jang Seok with an angry face, asking the reason for calling him so impolitely. Jang Seok was not going to live his past life and tried to ignore the conversation, stating that it was just a mistake. However, the man wasn't going to let down his disrespect so easily, and told him that he was going to introduce him to the organization as per the plan. As soon as Jang Seok heard those words, he remembered that it was exactly 23 years ago when that man introduced him to the organization, enro in short. His body started heating up, realizing that Kimon was the #1 contender, who made his past life as messed up as it was. Seeing the face of that man, Jang Seok was once again boiling with anger. On the other hand, the gangster was trying to be a senior, warning him that he needed to be educated for sure about behavior skills. Not so long, Hem's face changed when the protagonist himself called him to just shut up. With that, without giving a second thought, Jang Seok rushed his palms red on his face, making the gangster gasp for breath. The gangster was not able to understand why such a little kid had that much strength. It was then, when the other man standing behind the gangster tried to attack Jang Seok. Our hero noticed his presence and without even flinching, blocked his attack using his bare hands. It was clear that he was not in a very good mood, and again, his previous self started to come over him. As Hem's subordinate tried to attack Jang Seok, he took on the other man with bare strength, knocking him down in just one single hit. It was not like that had who was even worth his memory to interfere in a battle like that. On the other hand, the yellow-haired gangster tried to get up on his feet, but was again busted with a fearful strike by Jang Seok. The beating continued for a while, and after being on top for a moment, Jang Seok pondered that it was that man who had bumped him into the organization. If it had never happened, he might have lived a happy life. The yellow-haired gangster was begging for mercy while Jang Seok was clenching his face, looking right at his eyes, and was about to attack. Just then, out of nowhere, he remembered the angel's voice asking what he was going to do. He was provided with another chance. That contemplation made Jang Seok lose his strength in his hands, and he stopped in the middle of the attack. He turned to the guy and asked him to be so timid. He just wanted to give him a warning that he should not get on his nerves again, and then left the place while asking all of them to just disappear from the location. On his way back to the school, he was still pondering that he was not going to waste his second life just for the sake of some freaking mad guy, and his determination was absolute to live a happy life and head to school on a regular basis. However, the moment he reached school, everything changed as the bald headmaster started screaming at him, asking him to drop out. There was a little expected but pre-planned, as he already had numerous mischief on his shoulders, included untold absences, stealing cases, and smoking issues. The headmaster was determined in his own ways to make the kid drop out of the school, and it looked like Jang Seok still had not remembered that he was in an 18-year-old body, acting all strange with a full attitude. Now when Nadim was taking his time to scold the guy, remembering him of what he had done, Jang Seok responded with how he was going to get out of that mess easily, calming himself in the moment. He asked for a conversation and told him that from that day forward, he was not going to mess things up in school. He was ready to accept that he was one of the tough bastards to handle, but was not ready to leave the school just because of that. He started playing emotional games, asking the dean for a briefing on his decision and how he could ask a student to drop out of school after being a teacher himself. This time, the bald dean was in shock to see such a comeback, talking in such a meaningful manner, remembering his thoughts on how he would generally act further. Realizing that if he made that comeback into a good student, it would be a great achievement as a teacher. While thinking about all the sequences and circumstances, he confirmed his saying and then handed over Jang Seok his book, stating that he had earned his trust once again. Scenes then changed to class 2-4, and some students were talking about averted magazines, and when the camera angle changed, it looked like no one from the class was paying attention to the teacher, who was trying to calm all of them at once. Just then, with a kick on the door, Jang Seok entered, showing his presence and greeting his friends. Something was not right, as the teacher herself was not feeling well after seeing the presence of Jang Seok, and she blushed hard with just a single way from him. The scene turned to a flashback when on a sunny day the new homeroom teacher Hanji entered the classroom giving her introduction for the year. While sitting on the back bench, Jang Seok's friends were doing what they did best. Hanji was feeling embarrassed by those comments, and they entered our key man for the day. An answer about Hanji's personal life being in a relationship left her at a loss for words, while Jong Seok continued his bingering and mocking, acting like jumping on the homeroom teacher. At that moment she was shivering to see such a young boy acting in such a different manner. Fast forward to the present, Han Ji-sil was in a state of denial and did not like the presence of such a rude boy there. Once again the backbenchers started mocking her and making personal attacks. This time Jong Seok in a completely different act smashed both of his friends, asking why they were acting in such a mean manner. He then went to the teacher, apologizing on behalf of his friends, making the cute teacher contemplate what really had happened. She questioned if the person really was Jong Seok sitting on the bench. He turned to his adjacent student, who was shivering to see him sitting at his desk. After a little banter between two classmates, Han Ji still could not believe that the man really wanted to study through the book. He was searching for his friend, acting all good, but the moment Jong Seok looked into his books he realized that he was not able to understand even a bit of it, as he had never studied. As the class ended, his friends were not in a good mood and asked why he acted so strangely inside the room. But at that moment too he hadn't changed at all. Once again fell on their head, he told his friends that they were going to live a good life and further asked them to keep themselves in check. His friends were in complete shock and were not able to believe his words. But further, he mocked them while kicking their backs, asking them to head out as he was already hungry. All of his actions were being noticed by someone, and this time it was pretty clear a girl. Finally, when the school ended, Jong Seok enjoyed a sip of a Tetra Pak juice madly, claiming that he had not tasted it in the past 20 years. It was not liked by the others, and he really did not care about what they were feeling. Just then, he was called by someone, and this time that girl turned out to be a real beauty who was astonished to see the presence of that man right there. It looked like she was asking him to head out with them, and as expected, the other two backbenchers were already drooling over her beauty, while Jong Seok blushed, thinking if she really was Kan. Her private presence gave him some memories, and it was then when he was called by an elderly man surrounded by some of the gangsters, asking if he was doing good or not. Our protagonist identified them as someone who was basically ruling that school, and as per his memory, he had not had a bad relationship with them. He did not want to see them any time and asked the man to get to the point. The moment the gangster tried to explain what he wanted, out of nowhere, Jong Seok just asked him to get off to his mother. At first the man didn't realize and continued speaking. However, upon realization, his voice changed as well as his aura, as he didn't like being called that. On asking for confirmation, Jong Seok called him by his name once again and added a nickname druggist to it. As expected, no kid would like to be called that, and as per his records, he had never been caught apart from one time. The gangster was not going to give any more attention to the man, and Jong Seok walked out, stating that he should keep his distance from him. Further, he advised the man to go to the hospital before it's too late. It looked like that declaration wasn't liked by his puppies, standing just behind him, and one of them moved forward to get a hand on our protagonist without thinking of the consequences. As expected, once again, Jong Seok twisted his hands with a flinch of his power, further intimidating the others standing in the back. That man still had 3 of the gangsters behind him, and he ordered all of them to burst the man in front of them. So in short, all of them were going to attack him at once. Jong Seok, being intelligent and aware, knew that it was not something he could handle alone. In order to scare them all, he busted the rest of the men he was currently holding, giving them absolute pain. This was not liked by all 3 of them, and he continued telling them that they should be the ones not messing with their junior, as it's not fair in the end. Without giving much thought, he asked the leader of the group, Kang Yang-gai, to enter a one-on-one battle. His conditions for the battle were simple. If he loses, he will give everything, but if he wins, he will become the boss of the school. The 3 subordinates of Kang Yang-dai appreciated the man for just heading in and winning that battle, but it was taking too long. So Jong Seok once again twisted the rest of his subordinates' arms mercilessly. The leader of the group was fully aware that it was a trap, and that the man was asking him to fight in a one-on-one battle in front of so many people. But the point was that he wasn't given a choice in that situation. This much had already been thought of by Jong Seok, and he wanted the same thing that the man was thinking. It happened exactly as he had already planned. Kang Yang-jai asked him to just get away from there, telling him that you would let him off for that time, and he should never be on his side again. Jong Seok tried to interrupt, but Kang Yang-gai denied it, stating that he was letting it go for now. He started walking away from the scene, thinking his bluff had worked. If it hadn't, things could have turned really bad. Kang Yang-gai was wondering how that man found their secret for determining revenge on his humiliation, but he would get his revenge one day for sure. Meanwhile, the students of Class 2-4 were doing physical training, and Jong Seok was also one of them. He was doing as instructed, wondering how he was going to manage his personal life after heading out of school. At that moment, he noticed a girl standing in front of him not doing the exercises as instructed. He started making fun of her, causing the girl to lose confidence in her figure. Just then, Jong Seok noticed something was off with the girl, and it was then when he saw a scar on her left hand. That single thing gave him several memories, where the little girl was surrounded by some thugs. At that time, the protagonist was the one who bullied her with his lit-up cigarette. The next day, a news article in the paper showed a photo of the girl, Sim Jae, and it was confirmed that she had committed suicide around that time of the year. At the same time, the boys were indulged in the basketball game while Jang Seok was not liking what he had done to Sim Jae in the physical training class. A little thought made him realize that he had forgotten his true purpose of getting a second chance at life. For that moment, the three people he interacted with, including the yellow-haired gangster Kang Yang Guy and Sim Jae, were the mistakes of his past, and in any case, that was going to remain the same. There was nothing he could do, but he decided to at least apologize for his mistakes. But when he tried to find the presence of the girl, realization shook him that she was not there. Only a peek of her boys was confirming that something had happened to her. Without giving a second thought, he busted open the gate, asking what those bastards were doing with that girl. As he opened the gate, he kicked the man at his belly, leaving him to be slammed against the wall. Before the second one could even explain, Jang Seok slapped him across the cheek and threw him down on the floor. None of his friends were able to understand what the man was doing. However, it was too late as Jang Seok continued beating them, asking them to just get off the place and questioning why they were trying to bully the little girl. His eyes had a different kind of rage, and when he had the intention to kill, the moment the second one tried to stop him, asking why he was doing that, he turned behind and delivered his second punch to his belly, making his eyes pop out from the pain. Jang Seok took a moment, then told them to just shake off from the place, or they would be killed. The only reason he was holding himself back was that he was still a 23-year-old school student. Both of the bullies followed his commands and left the room without a second thought. Jang Seok realized what the reason was behind that girl committing suicide. At that moment, the girl was shivering in fear, lying on the floor, grabbing her body. Only happiness was that she hadn't committed suicide after thinking of him. However, everything changed as he tried to approach her, and she shook her head away from his face, avoiding him. It was so sudden for him as he was the one who saved her from those bastards. Still, her eyes were telling a different story. He tried to understand how all that started, and he turned to a flashback to the day when he first met Sim Jae. She, being innocent, was picking up her pocket when he tried to mock her for her gesture at that time. He just ignored her presence and moved off. One day, when he was discussing his little street fights with his friends, he noticed the girl was always sitting alone with a book, head down on her chair. He wondered why she always ended up like that, and if she didn't have any friends. He was informed that the girl had been a loner since middle school, but even then, it wasn't enough to make Jang Seok feel any kindness towards her, as he had always been annoyed by her little face. With no intention of messing with her, he eventually ended up bullying Sim Jae by making fun of her and using her to kill time. He liked seeing someone running down tears from their cheeks. The bullying continued for a period of time, and all that little girl was able to do was endure it. In the end, when the boys left the scene, she was left on the floor, still sobbing and shivering in fear. Back to the present, Jang Seok felt a great sense of guilt for what he had done to that little girl in the past. He was different from how he was before, and that's why he tried once again to approach the girl. But she shook her head, unwilling to let him touch her face. Unexpectedly, Jang Seok apologized for his mistakes and for using a cigarette to harm her forearm. The girl was in complete shock, and her tears stopped running down her cheeks. At that moment, the boy apologized again with a red face. As the scene changed once again, some of the guys were discussing something while looking at the two bastards being busted, all covered in pain and grilling over the teeth, which were broken by the man. One of them was not able to hold back his anger and further tried to tell Jang Seok that he was going to complain to the police. Jang Seok didn't care about it, and while standing up from his seat, tried to tell them that there was nothing they could do against him. He further added that, as per the laws, assaulting someone would only lead to a mere warning. He then asked them what they thought he would do once he was released. Everyone was aware at this time. Jang Seok was pissing in his pants but still tried to act cool, giving the man clarification that if he stated his misdeeds to the police, he was sure he would be the one in custody. That conversation was overheard by some of the classmates, and when they started discussing it again, one of them reconfirmed the question that had just been asked, raising his anger. The boy was at a loss for words and went back to his knees. At that time, Jang Seok shook off the other two discussing it and warned them again not to do anything stupid in the class. That little discussion ended, and Jang Seok went back to his seat, noticing that the teacher still had not arrived. All the other classmates were busy leasing their butts. For the time being, he asked one of his adjacent seater about the presence of Sim Jae. He was told that she had gone back to the nurse's office. The boy then had the courage to ask the man if something had really happened to the girl. That question made Jang Seok remember the shivering of the girl he had seen inside that room. At that moment, he was just wishing that the girl wouldn't do anything dumb. His head was already aching with all that thinking, and he wanted a little rest. But then a guy told him that it would be less than 2 minutes before the next lecture started. The teacher entered the classroom, telling the guys that she was going to start with the remedial class. Less than 1 minute after the class started, Jang Seok asked for a pen and paper from his adjacent seater, and then started preparing his misdeed list, figuring out the things he had to fix. The man was right. What he had done in his past needed to be corrected. First, he was going to fix Simjae's suffering. Even though that was a priority, Jang Seok took time to think about what the only way could be to do so, as it seemed the girl wasn't going to commit suicide at the moment. But there was still a chance that she might in the near future. The only answer that came to his mind was making her escape from being a loner. The scene changed once again, and Hanji was still engaged in reading the textbook, all sweaty, while the rest of the classroom was completely sleepy and lazy, trying to shake off their hands from the lecture. Jang Seok was already aware that in this school, no one was going to pay any attention to the lesson, so his second target to achieve at that moment was Hanji's condition. The list continued. Third, quitting smoking. Fourth, stopping swearing. And the most important thing to his mind was the fifth item, his father. He gave it some thought because his father had done several things for him while working his butt off at the construction site, and that's why he was so determined to get a job as soon as he graduated from college. He continued to think about it, but then tried to remove that thought from his mind by crumpling the paper and tossing it into the dustbin. All that time, his adjacent seatmate was trying to peek at what the man was doing, and somehow Jang Seok didn't like it. After a while and a lot of struggle, Jang Seok finally finished writing what he was going to do. At that very moment, Hanji, the homeroom teacher, called him for a little discussion. She wanted to discuss it alone because it wouldn't be good if she disturbed the class. They changed to the office area where the girl tried to explain the reason she had called him in. However, Jang Seok didn't pay any attention. He then stood respectfully in front of the teacher and apologized for what he had done in the past. That apology felt real, and the expression of the teacher changed thoroughly. Without a second thought, she told the man that he had really changed. It was so sudden. And so Jang Seok asked for a reconfirmation. She continued to speak, telling him that he had really changed. It was something expected, and at that moment, with a smile on her face, she told the man that the reason she called in was because she needed a favor from him. The teacher told him that he had a big physique compared to anyone else in the class, and that was the reason everyone was scared of him. With this declaration, Jang Seok wondered if the request was going to be to make the class quiet or if something like being a monitor would do. Hanji, on the other hand, asked Jang Seok to take care and stop anyone from bullying Simja. That was a sudden request, and Hanji continued to tell him that she had information that he was the one who helped when someone was trying to bully her. Without wasting a second, Jang Seok gathered the courage to ask her if the girl was really present as per Hanji's info. Hanji had sent the girl home earlier than the class. He further inquired if Jang Seok was really aware that Simjae was being bullied at school. The point was that the girl was too lenient, and it was difficult to make her understand that she needed to stand up against bullying at school. Even though they tried millions of times, they were unsuccessful. Jang Seok realized that too, but then again reconfirmed with the teacher if she was okay with handing over that matter to someone like him, as she had the clarification that the boy was changing. Jang Seok was taken aback by such a declaration and was excited to know that the teacher had realized the effort. With that, he agreed in front of the teacher to lay her hand and do what she was thinking of. Suddenly, she told him that she needed to fulfill the task as soon as possible. At that moment, the teacher took a time, then started screaming, denying the fact that she was the school teacher and he was a student. There was no chance of anything like that. On the other hand, Jang Seok's demand was simple. He wanted English tuition after school. The teacher required him to be honest and stated that even his ABCs weren't in line when it came to English. He spoke those words while pondering that it was going to be embarrassing to speak something like that in front of the teacher. After some thought, the teacher agreed to his request and told him she would give him supplementary classes after school to correct his English. With a smiling face, the teacher said this, and Jang Seok, feeling embarrassed, didn't even think it would be something exciting. With that, he tried to shake off the conversation and head out from the school, feeling bad for what he had done. The teacher was still trying to recollect how a boy had changed so much, and she wondered to herself if she was a good teacher. School ended and Jang Seok left in the evening, realizing that the years spent in school had passed by and it was so long before he had school life again in the 23 years. At that moment, he noticed the presence of some of the girls, and being a man, he realized that the 2 years ahead of him would be good if he spent them the way he was acting that day. Amidst his talking, he noticed the presence of Simja and wondered if that girl was still there when she had left from school earlier. It really was her, and she was standing in the middle of the road like nothing was wrong. Calling her over, Jang Seok asked why she was still there when she had taken off from school early. Both of them were looking at the setting sun. She told him that she didn't feel like going home. Only Jang Seok asked her not to skip school in any case, and further told her that he was going to teach her how to stand up to bullying. Even if the case arrived where she was going to be bullied, she just needed to tell him and he would help her. Simja couldn't understand what had caused the sudden change in Jang Seok. Jang Seok reconfirmed if someone was really bullying her. He answered the question himself, explaining that her thought process was completely right as he was one of them, but his process had completely changed. He shook the head of the girl, properly consoling her that he was now trying to live a good life from that period on. It looked like a cute couple trying to spend time beside the setting sun. However, Jang Seok came back to his senses and told the girl that she should not be thinking badly of him in that situation. The girl apologized, and as soon as the signal went green, Jang Seok walked off from the place, heading towards the girl. He felt like she wanted to say something, but when he asked, she just denied. However, Jang Seok already had a feeling that the girl was thankful to him, waving back. The angel, unbeknownst to him, was watching and realizing that he was trying his best. It was just a little part of his mistakes, and something more interesting awaited him. Meanwhile, Jang Seok was wondering what he was going to have when he got home to eat. When Jang Seok turned back home, he was feeling shabby. He took out the crumpled paper where he had written all the things he needed to correct. Jang Seok was sure he could take care of the problems concerning the school, but the major problem in front of him was what he was going to do after he graduated. Graduating with only English was not going to help him. He turned to the calendar, thinking that it was 1995 when the major crisis around the world was going to start. At that time, all the stock prices would plummet, and he was sure that if he bought a bunch of stocks, he could become a billionaire within a few minutes. It was a foolproof plan for him, but after a little thought, he rejected that idea, realizing what the angel had told him about being honest in his repentance. He didn't want to take the shortcut of misdeeds to earn a lot of money. Just then, he turned his head to the clock and realized that his old man was going to be home early, so he went back to prepare ramen. He was still mischievous enough and was about to grab the first bite of the food when someone knocked on the door. When he turned, he found his old man coming back from the construction site. His father once again was concerned if his son had skipped classes. Jang Seok just looked at his face without any answer. The scene changed to a flashback in the jail, where the guard informed Jang Seok that someone was waiting to meet him. As he reached the meeting room, he found his old father looking concerned. However, Jang Seok didn't pay any attention to the old man and turned back to get inside the cell. His father was continuously begging him to talk to him. However, Jang Seok abused his father, leaving him completely astonished at what he said. For clarification, he mocked his father for not even being able to bail his son out. Those words were like a knife to the heart, which made the father fall onto the floor on his knees and cry. Jang Seok, on the other hand, was realizing that it was the best option for his father to forget about his criminal son and live his life to the fullest. A few days passed in the cell, and one of the guards informed him that his father had already passed away. The reason was stated as absolute stress in the report the guard handed to him. It was depicted that the father's body was found after a long time, as there had been no one to attend to him on the night of his death. In Jang Seok's cell, there was continuous sobbing, and when the camera angle changed, it was clearly visible that Jang Seok was crying uncontrollably, shivering, apologizing to his father. In the present, his father once again screamed to get him back to his senses, telling him to greet his father when he came back. Jang Seok ignored him and further asked him to get ready and eat some ramen. It was sudden, and so Jang Seok clarified that he was just trying to be a good son, so his father should get ready for the first time in a while. The father realized that his son had matured, and the embarrassment peaked. They sat down for dinner, and as they looked at each other and sipped the ramen, Jang Seok remembered his younger days when he didn't like his father at all. There was no one who would like a father who was deep into alcohol, not caring about his family, and someone who would drop his mother just because of his addiction. Everything changed after Jang Seok was born, as his father showed a different approach, trying to work hard on the construction site to earn money for their livelihood. At first, Jang Seok thought his father was only trying to earn money to fulfill his drinking needs, but it wasn't long before he realized that his father had given up drinking. Once he left the addiction, things took a twisted turn as he was continuously caught up by the detectives for his misdeeds. His father cried numerous times just because of him, and he saw his belief broken off by his own son. Jang Seok realized that now, and as the scene turned, he was shivering and sobbing while crying uncontrollably, dropping his tears into his food. The food must have been salty. When the father inquired if Jang Seok was really crying in front of him, he answered the conversation, stating that the spices in the ramen were something much more than he could handle at that time. He cleaned his eyes and reflected all of his pleasure to the angel, thanking him for what he had provided at that moment. Both of them went back to sleep, and not long after, Jang Seok's father woke up again, packing to head to the construction site while rubbing his back due to pain. Unexpectedly, Jang Seok woke up and asked his father to rest, as he was not going to let him go without seeing a doctor. His father denied any kind of rest and was determined to head back to the office. It was then when Jang Seok, embarrassed with a red face, asked his old man to come back home safely and not hurt himself in any case. His father looked at him with a confused face, but then smiled a bit, giving him assurance of doing so as he left. As his father left, Jang Seok looked at the sky and told the angel that he was ready for hell, as long as his father was going to have good honest conditions. For that reason, he was always ready to choose the wrong path. Finally, it was time for him to head back to school once again. As he was on his way, he was yawning and completely tired. His whole body was aching from laziness, and he was giving his best to stretch, thinking about the next 2 years he had to pass through. As he passed once again, the yellow gangster was sitting, smoking a cigarette, sitting right in front of him. Jang Seok thought about the consequences once again, having disrespected his senior gangster, making him lose his calmness in such embarrassment. He was not able to do anything, and just show the man continue his rubbish talks, asking him to come back to his senses as he was trying to act weak on himself. Jang Seok, with a grin, informed him that he was not a gangster at all, and it was time for him to get back to his senses, get a job, and live his life peacefully once again. He walked off, putting the man on the floor, agonizing in anger. He should come back to his own self. Not long after, he reached back to school and was astonished to see the chirping of boys and girls around the classroom so early in the morning. Everyone was indulged in tasks, and Jang Seok was confused to see so many of them at such an early time, including Sim Ja. As soon as he was at his desk, he started wondering how he could settle things with the little girl. He decided to ask his adjacent seatmate Pol to switch seats with Sim Ja for a bit. Pol agreed and left the seat. When a girl reached him, he asked her to sit beside him for a discussion. Sim Ja agreed, but she sat on the bench. Jang Seok started looking at her from all directions, trying to find something odd in her. The only way to make her famous in the school was to her appearance, but he was aware that the girl didn't look so bad in her current self. Jang Seok tried to understand her, and then asked about her glasses, asking if she would be fine without them. When he got even a little confirmation, he took off the glasses from her face. When those glasses were removed, that girl looked like a baddie for sure, and she pleaded for her glasses back. On the other hand, Jang Seok was taken aback by the girl's looks without the glasses and further confirmed her eyesight. He held up 3 fingers, asking if she could read or not. The girl was successful in that, and it was then realized that the girl had looked like an old geezer, due to the old-fashioned style glasses. With that understanding, he asked the girl not to wear glasses from then on. All of this was being witnessed by Pol, who was looking at them in confusion. Being a good guy, Jang Seok handed her the glasses back, asking the girl to bring some money. Those words were a bit of a bully, and so the little girl agreed while having tears in her eyes. When Jang Seok tried to explain that it was not meant to be bullying, she apologized and agreed to keep it a secret from the teacher. Aniclimax at the end of it, he just sighed and told her that the 1 week she was going to spend with him was surely going to change her life for sure. As time passed in school, Jang Seok was lying on the bench, sleeping in the middle of class. It was then when a man entered the classroom with a bang on the door, asking for the presence of Jang Seok. The other classmates were confused about his presence, and one of his friends, who had been beaten by Jang Seok yesterday, was grinning in happiness for some reason. The man then shook the sleep off Jang Seok, asking him to wake up. When Jang Seok finally woke up, the man pointed his finger at him, asking him to fight right away, without any reason. Jang Seok was taken aback once again, wondering what the identity of that man was. Before he could think any more about it, the man himself told him that he was in support and one of his friends whom he had busted yesterday. Realizing that the man was surely called by one of his friends, Jang Seok confirmed this and with absolute resolution hurried to fight. Jang Seok was still confused if he was doing this just because of that, but it wasn't the time for him to think about those little things. He started analyzing the man standing in front of him, trying to understand his identity. Being totally carefree, Jang Seok tried to shake off the man, asking him to just head back to school quietly. He then pondered why he would get himself engaged in any kind of relationship that he hadn't in his past life. Those words were sincere, and while Jang Seok was yawning to remove the tiredness from his face, he quickly delivered a powerful punch right on the face of the man. The attack surely made him angry. The other people watching the fight were a bit concerned, including a cute couple. While Jang was so happy to see the fight, he told Jang Seok that the man in front of him was an unprofessional boxer with a license, and it was time for him to re-fight for something. Jang Seok cleared his nose, bleeding, thinking that even though he was trying to live a peaceful life, no one was letting him. With that confidence, he asked the man to come up and promised to teach him how to deliver a real punch. The news of the fight spread around the school like wildfire. Everyone was rushing to the classroom to see how they were fighting. The battle was between Jang Seok and Do-jun. Among those hearing about it was the girl from before, who was more interested in the second name of the fight. She then turned to the classroom once again, and the professional boxer Do-jun was delivering continuous punches to Jang Seok. Jang Seok was realizing it through the impact of those punches, but he had already planned for the future. He knew those punches were not going to last more than 2 minutes, and that was the basic thought in Do-jun's mind as well. But being a professional fighter, he had already planned his next move. As Do-jun dropped his guard, Jang Seok looked for an opening and landed an intense punch, giving the professional boxer the opening he was waiting for. It was the moment Do-jun had been waiting for. It had been obvious from the start, but plans turned to dust when Jang Seok stopped and delivered a powerful low kick right on the knees of his opponent. That fierce attack made the tall man shiver in pain. He called for Jang Seok to cover, thinking the battle was turning into a ring match. Dojun was once again boiling with anger, and this time he tried to deliver a punch without thinking about the circumstances. As expected, it was easily dodged by Jang Seok, but after telling him about it, Jang Seok delivered one of the most powerful punches of the battle, right to Dojun's left cheek, knocking him to the floor. Dojun realized the bend he had just fallen into, even after being a professional. It wasn't going to end with just one single punch. So he grabbed Dojun by the collar and started delivering continuous slaps to his left and right cheeks, intensively sweeping the floor. The classmates and other onlookers were astonished to see such an attack. Dojun had already asked for relief and started apologizing for his actions. After emerging as the loser, he told Jang Seok that he was not one of the friends of those two bastards. He closed the distance and told the man that his presence was never imagined to be here. He clarified that the man was sent by Kang Yang to take revenge for what Jang Seok did to him the last day. Dojun had tears in his eyes, but he still couldn't answer the question. Jang Seok grabbed him tightly by the collar, trying to deliver the final punch to end his life. But just then, out of nowhere, a loud scream asked him to stop. It was Sim Jae, who wanted to stop him from attacking a professional boxer. Jang Seok followed her orders and stopped, then left the classroom to head to the washroom. He told them to inform the homeroom teacher. Jang Seok headed to the washroom, washing his hands and had just delivered those powerful punches. He was remembering his past life when he had taken down several men with his bare strength, allowing the spectators to enjoy the moment, as if they were watching a movie. His realization told him from the start that it was his mistake, but the point was that so much time had passed. He hadn't had the chance to understand when he looked at the faces of his classmates. It was clear that there was no acceptance. He saw the absolute fear melting from Sim Jae's eyes. He had no other options, and that was when he realized he still had a long way to go if he wanted to achieve something. His focus was now on countering the group of young guy. He was aware that this time the man was not someone who would let go of things easily. He was already on the radar of the dean, and Jang Seok was trying to brace himself for the future. On the other side of the wall, someone was coming with a lot of papers. As expected, both of them burned the papers, dropping them on the floor. Jang Seok turned to see who had the courage to do so, and he found a girl, long black hair shining, apologizing for not being able to see cubed all the papers. This time, Hanji was in an appropriate position and Jang Seok was drooling to look at something while she spread her legs like a sandwich between them. Being embarrassed enough, she closed the doors and Jang Seok looked behind with a red face. He looked at everything while he just started collecting the papers and handing them over to her. Hanji told him that it was just for him, and as he looked into the sheet, ABCD was written properly with proper pronunciation, something like it was the basics of English. She had prepared it for him in order to give him supplementary classes, confirming that she prepared all those by staying up all night. Hanji just talked it off, stating that it was different from textbooks. She smiled and told him to go with the flow and read it, and further allowed him to come to her if anything bothered him in that book. When reaching back to the classroom, the teacher was teaching them one of the subjects while he was rolling the papers that were provided by him, the Hanji. Realizing that she was really giving true effort for someone like him, there was a blush on both of his cheeks. He decided to take off the topic of gangsters and start learning the English his miss had prepared for him. He was reading ABCD like nothing, and his adjacent seat, Pole, was looking at him with concern. There was a little chatter between them, and Jang Seok was too happy just to read out a single word properly in English. The teacher was teaching them about the 7 sword branches, and Jang Seok laughed, dipping into that state, as those bastards were not aware of what was waiting for them in the year 1995 when the crisis was going to hit. Pole was confused with such a declaration. Time passed in the school once again, and this time Jang Seok was not able to hold back all the bells ringing around the bush, and his head was getting up from tiredness. Pole once again came to him and told him that the next class was music. Jang Seok realized that the boy was trying to help him all the time, and the boy wondered why Jang Seok was looking at him with such a big smile. Embarrassed by himself, he tried to poke his finger at the man, waiting for a long while, gathering the courage to ask the name of the kid. Inho was confused if that man was for real, as it had already been a month since they were sitting together. Since then, they turned to the music classroom, and Jang Seok was informed that he could sit anywhere if he wanted to. Yawning on his face, he decided to sit at the back of the classroom to get a tired sleep, and then he heard some of the classmates making fun of his to-be-loved, asking her to just sit around the corner. She accepted it without any hesitation. Sim Jao went to sit around the corner of the bench, and Jang Seok joined her without saying anything, making her even more confused. That was an awkward moment, and so they clarified that he just sat at that position because he wanted to study hard. That attitude was not liked by those girls for sure, and they started whispering. So when they went back to the original music, Jang Seok was too pissed to see that there was water or something all over the bench of Sim Jao with some cursing words. He, being in absolute anger, tried to rush to them while the girls stopped him, telling him that it was all right and there was nothing to worry about. Jang Seok reconfirmed if that was so normal, and so the girl did, stating that it was not the first time for real. He was not able to do anything, and just left the place with a grin on his face, asking her to do whatever she wanted to. Sim-jae, with pure calmness, looked at her bench and started cleaning it off using a towel. In-ho came to Jang Seok to tell him that in the morning she looked pretty happier while talking to him, further embarrassing the man with his words, and so he clapped on the head of his adjacent seat. During all that time his eyes were stitched to the girl who was cleaning the bench like a poor incapable of anything. As the school ended and Sim-jae was heading back to her home, she heard someone asking if she was really satisfied with hitting herself. She genuinely apologized, and Jang Seok was pissed off by that apology. He heard all that time from the beginning for inquiring why she stalked him in the middle of the fight during that morning, and she told him that it was violence and it had been bad for ages. Jang Seok sighed and told her that even though violence and fighting were bad, she should not allow anyone to get themselves best without any reason. For the teaching of the day, he told her that she was the one who was allowing the others to get to her, and the true reason behind them doing so was not because they hated her or didn't like her, but because she was so easy to bully that none of them could stop themselves from delivering that pain to her. Out of nowhere, the girl spoke that she was already aware of it, that all that happened because she herself allowed for it, being an idiot and too easy at that time. She remembered her past sufferings while showing in tears, telling the man that she accepted all those things because she thought that if she showed any kind of resentment, she would surely be facing something harder than that in her regards. She always thought that if only she was going to not say anything and accept it, there might be a chance that she would lead a peaceful life. Her sobbing continued all that time, and Jang Seok was looking at her with a confused face, and as soon as he got an answer in his mind, he grabbed the hand of the girl and started pushing her further, asking the girl to follow him to the place he wanted to take her. As they headed on their way, Sim-jae was astonished to see that he had taken her to an arcade, and was telling her that it was a place where bookworms like her were not going to be. For the first game at the arcade, he was going to use the punching game and further asked the girl to look at him. He delivered one of the deadliest punches on the machine, and as the past record of 758, which was the highest, was broken, just with one punch, leading to 782 points. People were totally astonished to see the strength of that guy, and the little girl, who was not aware, started clapping. It was going to be her chance next to do so. She tried to get herself out of the task, but Jang Seok started playing with her head, forcing her to try in any case. She took the place of the guard, and as she was making the boy embarrassed, he went back to her, telling her the right position of her legs, hands, and the direction in which she needed to stand deliver a powerful punch. He was about to tell her about the rotation thing when it was done. Sim-jae's face turned totally red. Finally ready, he asked her to deliver the punch, thinking that she was delivering the punch to someone right on the face. Unexpectedly, she gathered all her strength and delivered the punch in the middle of the arcade. She stood there in confusion, realizing that it was a lot louder than she thought it would be, and he praised her for it, asking if all her agony finally disappeared with it. As soon as he got the assurance, he told her that it was his place whenever he was angry at someone and could not fight because of his due diligence. While playing on the machine, he asked her if she was an idiot. The little girl started sobbing once again and continued, asking if it was right to get bullied. It was the reason she needed to take a stance and get the burden off her chest, gathering the courage to tell them that she was not up for the bullying she was provided with. Still, the girl wasn't convinced, and Sir Jang Seok pointed to himself, telling her that he was doing all those things because he was the one being sorry at that time. Out of nowhere, he pointed out his pinky finger to watch the girl, stating that he was going to promise to do anything in his strength to prevent her from being bullied. They wanted to ask her to just come to him right away if something came up, and the girl agreed by making her own pinky promise and showing it to him, ending up in a promise. As both of them walked away, they tried to play with the girl about the face. She was thinking while punching them, and it looked like someone was telling them from behind that the man was very much happy to know the real reason behind him changing, and when he got to know what was the point of weakness for the man, he decided to play with it. Since then, it turned to the next day where Sim-jae, thinking about the pinky promise she had made with Jang Seok, was provided with Jang Seok. The last day before the return of help was so sudden, and just as a man banged on the table of the girl, startling her, it was none other than the leader of the gangster group of the school. At first he apologized, and when the girl inquired about the identity of the man, he introduced himself as a savior who was going to save her. Further elaboration, the man told her that he was aware that Jang Seok used to bully him in the initial days, and the mark on her right hand was evidence for sure. Sim-jae wondered how that bastard was aware of something like that, and it turned out that it was Jang Seok's friend who turned him inside that mess. As the leader was playing with him, he was continuously cussing his own friend. And so the leader then turned to the girl, asking her to come with them to say something to the teacher's presence. He even told her the words she spoke in front of them, including that Jang Seok was hurting her and bullying her from the start, and it was the star which was given evidence. Apart from that, he had also collected two of the guys who were the friends Jang Seok was proud of that would act as witnesses. In that case, he was sure it would be the key to his expulsion from the school, as the team's eyes were already on that bastard. That act would give the clarity that he was not going to finish those 2 years in that school in any case. Further, the man gave her the assurance that if he would be the one standing behind her, then no one was going to bully her. However, Simjae told the man that even so was the case before, that the man had already changed and was trying to help her in every regard. The leader sighed and called her a knife person by making up the story that he was trying to act all cool just because he didn't want to get expelled, and he was also aware that if she even said a single word against him in front of anyone, he was not going to be able to complete his graduation at the school and would get expelled. Simjae showed some assurance to it, stating that she surely was a stupid girl, and that maybe it was misunderstood. His intentions gave the leader hope that she was being convinced, but the happiness did not last long, as the girl, while shivering, denied his fate, stating that the boy was trying to help her, and that was the reason she was going to trust him. Those words were enough for the leader to lose his calm, and so he instantly grabbed the girl, asking her to do whatever he told her to do, or else her own life in the school was going to be miserable from that point onwards. Not only that, he also added to the conversation that he had already planned for the death of Jang Seok, sending some of the people outside to take care of him. As per his proclamation, he surely had been dead on his way to the school, as some of his men were already standing at the gate, handling some of the weapons for his welcome. Simjae was crying even with the thought of such harsh things happening to Jang Seok, but her prayers helped as the man entered the classroom, raising and further shattering the hopes of the leader. How he was present that there was a mystery, not so long the business, in which the man was trying to play with one as loves, enraged him towards the man. Time moved forward, and it was seen that some of the seniors were trying to attack Jang Seok, and he was giving his best to knock them down with just one single blow. His attack was successful, as the man was knocked to the floor. He then took one of the baseball bats to make them understand that they needed to know their places. The man once again told them that they should not be doing such things in the morning when they were trying to get back to the school. He asked if it was the gangster group who asked them to do so. The senior did not bother to reply, and then, with a grin on his face, told him that he didn't think that he was smart, as he was done for sure. Jang Seok was not able to understand what the man was talking about, and so the senior further told him that he was going to be bashed along with one of the loner girls for sure. Just then Jang Seok asked for a proper explanation, and by grabbing him, confirmed to talk properly. The senior was scared and threw out the words which gave the clarification that all of them were talking about Simjae for sure. Not so long the backup for the man arrived at the place, rushing towards him for the attack. But since Jang Seok was now aware of their real motive, he took the baseball bat and started heading right into the middle of the huddle to fight the first man. He killed him right on the face. For the second, he delivered a strong bat-hold attack to the arm of the man, making him fall to the floor. In the midst of all that, one of the guys was able to sneak behind him and deliver a bat strike right on his head, thinking that it really worked and would surely get him back to his senses earlier than imagined. Jang Seok matched this attack with his knee strike right on the nose of the man. Other seniors were even scared to see that a man was capable of doing such things, and it was then that one of the others reminded them that he was just a second-year-old kid. That motivation was enough, and all of them backed off for the final fight. Jang Seok was also fired up to show them what he was made of. The battle continued for a while, and as expected, Jang Seok emerged victorious, bashing all of them to the floor and heading out to the classroom. Immediately, he opened the door, and the first sight he saw was totally unexpected. The leader of the group was already holding on to the girl, someone he loved, while the other two were totally confused about his presence. In such a state, Jang Seok was boiling in anger, and he rushed forward for the attack without thinking about the consequences he may face at that stage. The leader's guard came up front to block him from heading directly to the man. However, Jang Seok was easily able to deliver two of the most deadly punches to take them down at just one go. He was so indulged in battling with the crooks that he forgot about the main dish. And it was then at the main dish the leader delivered a push right on his back, making him fall onto the benches. Simjae was shivering and sobbing all the time while the leader started using the man, asking if he dared to deliver a punch to the senior. He was continuously attacking Jang Seok, reminding him that he was the one who was the leader of that school, and was not going to let that man take over and with his presence in any case. Simjae had enough and tried to block the leader from further attacking, requesting him to stop as she was ready to do whatever he wanted them to do. The leader did not agree to it and again slapped the girl, calling her someone from the streets and dropping her to the floor. It was an ad that he should not have performed, but it was motivating for Jang Seok. He stood up after being injured and delivered one of the most deadly punches, telling the man by intuition that he needed to block it. However, before he could do so, the punch was already connected to his face, and it was enough to send the man down to the floor. Every other presence in the classroom was totally shocked to see that one of the leaders of the school was now defeated by a little thug. Sim-jae reached Jang Seok and asked if he was doing well or not, and further apologized, because she realized that it was all because of her that all this had happened. Jang Seok ignored her and then called for everyone, including the ones who dared to touch the hair of his girl, or for the girls who were bullying her without any reason. There was a single message for all of them. In any case, if that continued, he was going to kill them. Just then, the dean of the school entered the battlefield classroom, and after knowing the presence of Jang Seok there, he declared that if he was the reason for all of this, he would surely be expelled from the school right then. The dean was continuously cussing our poor protagonist, asking how he dared to do so and informing him about his expulsion. He then turned to the leader of the group to tell him that it was not like he was going to get off so easily, and somehow the leader was happy and ready to give anything, even a little bit of embarrassment in front of his juniors, until Jang Seok was going to be expelled from the school. Jang Seok realized that it was his intention all along. Baron cussed himself as he realized that he was there because of not controlling himself. He was going to end his second life also without any school period. Suddenly, his intention changed as he thought of what Sim-jae was going to face when she was expelled. He was sure that if anything like that happened, he was going to crush that group to the point that they wouldn't be able to think of what to do next. That intent was even felt by him, but before he could proceed, someone stopped his hand, and it was Sim-jae who came in front of the dean. The dean, at first, did not recognize her. She introduced herself in Class 4, telling the man that if Jang Seok was going to be expelled, and she was also going to leave the school. That declaration was unexpected, and everyone was shocked by it. Sim-jae told him that Jang Seok did so because she was being blackmailed, but the dean was not ready to accept something like that. He was in the middle of thinking when Hanji approached the dean from behind, agreeing with their situation. She said that even though violence was not the right cause, they needed to investigate what the purpose behind the battle was, as there might be a chance that Jang Seok really helped a friend. The leader, while sitting on the floor, did not take a liking to such things, and through the bruises injured face, he was wondering why all those street girls were backing up Jang Seok. Time passed, and this time embarrassment for the man was at its peak, as he was the one cleaning the toilets. The only thing of relief for him was that he was relieved from being expelled. To his surprise, even Sim-jae was waiting outside the toilet for him to go home together. Jang Seok took the chance to ask her to get inside and clean. However, the little girl was not going to get into a boy's bathroom for sure. Suddenly, Jang Seok's voice changed to a little seriousness, and he asked the reason for helping him in the moment of most need. He was totally aware that even if she had told a little bit about his mistakes to her, it would have been perfect revenge for the girl at that chance. Sim-jae gave a single reason, the promise, and the promise was that Jang Seok was going to help her from any kind of problems of being bullied. At first, Jang Seok took time to realize that point, but then laughed it off and made it pretty clear that he was going to take care of it. It was an embarrassing moment for both the girl and the guy, and so Jang Seok started a conversation, asking the girl if she bought the money she had asked for earlier. Since then, they turned her after school, where the little girl was taken aback by the presence she was in. It was the entertainment garden, and numerous girls, all dressed in good clothes, were waiting for the men's presence. Jang Seok did not talk about it and asked her to get in while she was being taken aback and brought to the location. She must have been curious. He wanted to have fun, but did not like it and picked a finger on her head, asking her to just stop with the weird things and follow him, as always someone again was trailing them. Wondering about the uniforms, he further thought if why some new high school uniforms were in that entertainment district. Jang Seok had entered a home, and the cute girl was welcome, but she was taken aback by the presence of a high school student in such a location. Jang Seok told her that it was not like he could not be there, and then handed over the girl, asking them to take care of her and make her comfortable for sure. The lady of the shop started with her work, and at first while trimming Sim-jae's hair, she pressed such shiny strands and was impressed by how beautiful they looked in her regard. Those hairs were really fine. However, the point was, it looked like they had not received any kind of treatment since the past year. The little girl held the courage to tell the salon owner that she had never been to one such treatment in all her life. The barber was stunned to hear that proclamation. For these days, schoolgirls going to salons was so normal, and as she looked at her up close, she found that the lady had good eyes and nice skin. The conversation between both of them continued, where the barber inquired about her school, and Jang Seok was sipping tea, wine ahead on the couch all alone. For the barber, the school in which they both were was famous for having difficult children, and so it was astonishing for her to see such a pretty and calm child from the same school. Jang Seok did not like such proclamations and was angrier at the barber. Just then the girl from before approached Jang Seok, calling him a big brother and asking if he brought his girlfriend. Jang Seok did not like this, as she was younger than him, but still the lady called him a big brother. Finally, when Jang Seok realized the situation, he understood that he was surely 23 years older than his current age, and it was the reason behind such intuition. Just then, the lady changed her attitude and started a conversation, realizing something about him. But before he could comprehend, she called him a pervert, hanging around to make someone pregnant. The lady then laid on the couch leaning towards Jang Seok, making him stumble. However, Jang Seok was a Sigma male who was going to love a single girl, and so he asked the beautiful lady to look at how beautiful her own burl was going to look after the haircut. Finally, when Simjao looked into the mirror, she looked much more beautiful than before. Jang Seok, just then, approached her from behind, freezing for the perfect cut and realizing that still there was something missing that they were going to look out for in the next meetings. The barber praised the lady, stating that she was really beautiful and needed some more detailing. And so the girl lingered. It was time for both of them to head out, and before doing so, Jang Seok mocked the earlier girl, asking if her girl was not one of the most beautiful right now. The changes between the ladies were complete, and while both of them were heading out, the barber realized that they were not acting like normal students but rather like a husband and wife. Then just a couple, the definition was having a mean husband, a kind wife. As both of them headed out, Jang Seok asked the lady to get her clothes a little shorter by the tailor, while the lady was concerned if the teachers were not going to like it, and someone was passing by, the one who had told them before they entered the entertainment district. That man bumped into Jang Seok and told them that it was not the place for high schoolers to roam around. But Jang Seok did not like such an attitude coming from someone who didn't know better. However, the attitude changed once he saw something familiar in the stranger and called him out as Jang's son. Leading the inquiry if he knew about the man, but he just shot off the conversation and started pondering the presence of that old man at that location. Giving a little more thought, Jang Seok realized that in his past life, he was the first person he had killed in his gangster life. Jang Seok had finally reached home and was laying back, thinking about that man and wondering why such things were happening. The story behind the man was that he was an important person of the Tiger Skull gang, one of the rival gangs. From the start, they wanted to get rid of him, and being a part of that gang gave him the opportunity to do so. When he met the man, he realized that he was already heading up in his organization. Still, something was wrong in the calculations, as there was no way a student and a gangster like them would know each other at such an early stage. This was giving him a single thought, that it was the angel who was behind all of that. That thought plagued our protagonist, but something he couldn't take at once, so he decided to relax, as he was not going to contact him in any case. While he was developing himself, his father told him to just go back to sleep as he needed to get out for work in the morning. Jang Seok decided to leave it and just went back to sleep. In the middle of the night, he woke up just feeling all lazy, and the moment he reached the kitchen, he found someone standing there which was unfamiliar to his dad for sure. At the moment when he turned, he saw the presence of the soul of Jang's son asking for recognition. He was playing his role to perfection, mocking his death and asking if he really wanted to succeed in his gangster life with such an act. He was calling the man a murderer, and Jang Seok was stumbling with each and every proclamation. The little chit-chat continued, and during all that time, Jang Seok was shivering in fear, calling that must be a dream. The dream was turning extraordinarily fearful when that man's soul tried to attack Jang Seok, leading Jang Seok to jump out of his bed, totally confused. Finally, as expected, that thing turned out to be a dream, and in any case, he did not like such a dream for sure. Once again, the bell rang, and he wondered who was there. As he picked up the call, he found the teacher on the other side of the line, and the teacher was showing concern because he had not been at the school without any preferred explanation. At first, Jang Seok was not able to understand what the teacher was talking about, but when he looked at the wall clock, he realized that he had been late and started cussing at the soul of the dream, which led him to such a destination, with the man sitting in his office, feeling a pain in his ears, wondering if someone was doing the same. As Jang Seok turned to the school, all the students were having fun. After the close of the first class, he passed through the gate with his presence, thinking about the first loss, but it was too late for sure. The atmosphere was completely different from earlier, and he wondered what the reason behind that was. Just before he could comprehend, two of his friends with dull faces were about to apologize. However, Jang Seok was already grinning at them. Both of them apologized, realizing that they were wrong on the last day, and Jang Seok remembered that he was so indulged with the beatings from the leader that he had already forgotten about them. He came to know that he was the strongest for the moment after beating the leader, and so, in order to teach them a lesson, he bumped a fist right on the back of their heads, asking them to just be themselves without creating any ruckus. However, in any case, he wanted both of them to apologize to Simjao right then. Everything started as planned, and when he came to know that he was the strongest guest of the school, he started searching for the girl. Instantly, things were not going as planned. At the moment, she was surrounded by numerous girls trying to talk to him, asking where she got her dress altered from, and if she had changed her hairstyle on someone's behalf. She was washing it all off in order to boost her confidence, but the moment he saw her smiling face with a red blush, he realized that it only had gotten a little better. Happiness was busted in the middle when one of his friends told him that the dean was asking for his presence after his arrival. Then he turned to the office area where Hanji was waiting for him. The dean was not at the moment in the school, and Hanji, being concerned, inquired if he was ill or something, and it was the reason behind him being late for the day. He denied it. Starting from the beginning, Hanji had a different kind of blush on her face whenever she met with Jang Seok. For that day also, she decided to take the call against the team, asking him to head back to the room. Jang Seok gracefully thanked her by blowing his head and then went back to the room with a smiling face, realizing that blessings only come to those who live kindly. However, the moment he saw some of the students who had not brought anything for the day, he realized he was really hungry. It was them, and Simjae asked him to have some for food. Initially, he denied it, stating that he wasn't a beggar. However, when she opened the box, he started drooling as he really wanted to have some of it. He accepted the lunch, acting like she was the one insisting, thinking that he deserved a little bit of it for sure. Suddenly, the girl from before entered the middle of the conversation. The lady asked if she was trying to get with him through lunch. Looked like she was a female gangster, accounting for 2 more back covers and a lollipop, gazing at Jang Seok. That lady praised him for being the strongest in the school, but Jang Seok wondered about the identity of the girl, remembering the last time where she acted and he played along just to remove any kind of unfaithful discussion. Simjae recognized her as Yeonjong. Jang Seok was done hearing that name, but the girl was not happy and he was not even aware of it when his ass was increasing every minute with a new identity being discovered. At that moment, a lady tried to talk with him, but he repeated his earlier answers he had given to everyone. The lady asked for a reconfirmation, further repeating that he had no intention of any kind of conversation with them, and then started discussing with his only girl to go back and eat something. Yeonjong, with absolute anger, started belling about something while calling Simjae someone who was possessed by a ghost. Jang Seok did not like such a proclamation and asked for a little bit of explanation. The delinquent giggled and told him that Simjae's mom was a shaman, leaving them behind because that lady was possessed by a ghost. It was such bullshit that he wasn't ready to believe it, but got confirmation when he looked into Simjae's eyes and saw her red face. A conversation soon took place in school life, where he asked why she didn't go home early, wondering if her mom was there to hit her. Jang Seok then asked about the bullshit from the lady who told him about it, and then came to know that such kinds of possession weren't able to stand unless a man was beside them. She wanted to continue adding something to the conversation, but it was too late as Jang Seok slapped her right on the face with a cheerful impact. Everyone was stunned to see such a scene, and further, Yeonjong called him bullshit and asked how he dared to. Jang Seok was ready to date a ghost rather than take a delinquent who was acting like a thug in the school. Every word coming out of his mouth was needles for the lady, and she tried to attack him. He grabbed her hand, telling her that there was no way he was going to get hit by someone like her. As expected, the lady started playing and showing off her background, where she belonged to and what her father did. But Jang Seok, being already 23 years older, was fully aware that the lady's father was a member of the Tiger Skull Gang. It looked like Yeonjong was so proud of having such a background standing against her, but her expression suddenly changed when Jang Seok closed the distance and told her that there was no way he was going to be scared of such a gangster at all. Taking the moment, he declared himself the strongest in the school, and while raising the lady's hand, stated that she was from then on going to be an official outcast. He further warned anyone who dared to come close to her would be killed. Every word was totally shocking to Simjae and the other students' presence in the classroom. Time passed, and both the couples were sitting beside the park on a bench, and the radio was wondering if that was really light of what he did with Yeonjong. She believed that it was a little harsh at that moment, but Jang Seok did not look pleased with such an attitude. He started playing with her cheeks, asking her to stop worrying about all the people giving a thought about that girl's real presence. He realized that it was the only girl who bullied her in middle school. He was aware of everything. While the girl tried to tell him that it was not from the beginning, Jang Seok did not bother about it. Whether it was or not, she must be punished. He further added to tell her that she was even busier than Kang Yeon. She was a delinquent who was acting in the school just with the backing of her father. In short, and being the OP right, there was going to teach her a lesson. That declaration made the lady giggle a little, and Jang Seok inquired about it. She told him that he was acting like a 40-year-old man, but it was seriously rude for an 18-year-old. One question still stands: if he was going to be okay with her gangster father. While Jang Seok was not even bothered a little about it, there he just decided to head back to the 5th class while she stopped him and reconfirmed. He wanted to be good with that. This time the question was totally different, as she was having tears in her eyes, and the question was regarding her being a shaman's daughter. Jang Seok was not able to understand the reason behind that question and further asked if being something like that was the past, to be bullied or not. Baloo Burrow was about to cry, and Jang Seok, after looking at her for a while, poked out his finger and attacked her for it once again, just like he did in the entertainment district. In any case, he wanted to tell her that, as per the promise, he was going to protect the lady from any kind of misfortune, whether it was from a ghost or from an outcast. In short, you want her to stop with such pathetic things, or else she would be flicked off numerous times for sure. Class is going to get started, and he wanted to head out, but was again stopped by the lady who was about to ask for another favor that he might not like. As the scene changed, Jang Seok was on the rooftop, and the delinquent from before named Eun Jong was asking the man to just apologize and cancel the announcement he made in front of everyone. Jang Seok started laughing, wondering if she really believed something like that. All lady was on the top of her boiling point. She was continuously reminding him about the Tiger Skull gang member. That is, her father, who could barge into the school without giving a second thought and could beat not only him but his only love, Simjad too. Something unexpected happened as Jang Seok released one of the fierce sponges, telling her that he was not going to show up with such big warnings. That was enough to put a crack on the wall, and the lady, being concerned, asked why he wanted to turn against the gang, knowing that it was too hazardous for him. Jang Seok, having knowledge of 40 years, told her that he was already aware that the father she was taking back right then was not different from a member who had been kicked out from the gang. As per the info, that man had been at the lowest of the gang for the last 20 years, was an alcoholic and had gambling debt on his head, someone who was a pain in the ass. Then Jang stood to his knowledge, and he further continued to warn her if she should say all those words in front of everyone, which would embarrass her to the peak point. In the end, where she realized that nothing was going to work upon him, she started asking the victim why he was doing such things to her, and if it was Simjae who asked him to do so and give him that much suffering. Jang Seok called it pathetic, and then moved to the flashback to tell her what that lady really said about her bully. That moment, she asked the man to just forgive that lady for her misdeeds, but Jang Seok was not ready for it, as it was one of the most pathetic acts he had ever seen. Her only reason for asking such an inadequate request was she had a feeling that the lady was going through something like she herself went through, her mother telling about the proof. She told him that at the start of middle school that lady was too bright and active than she was now. However, in the end she ended up with some of the delinquents, and it totally changed her personality to what she was right, that it was the only reason she wanted to give him another chance and wanted to become friends with her once again. As the scene turned to the present, Jang Seok was already at the peak of his boiling. It was a reason he was going to change her twisted personality, which needed a total lesson. The lady turned, asking what the man was really planning to do, and he told her that she should understand, as she was the girl at that moment. He turned into a hideous moment by moment, asking what she would do if someone was not her back. And at that moment he raised his hand to deliver a punch right on her face to give her the real taste of the real thing. Eun Jong looked at it. She saw something familiar in the face of her father raising the hand towards her, and she tried to protect herself, leaning on the floor, screaming out like leading her father not to beat her. It was the eye-opener for Jang Seok, and he stopped in the middle and asked the shivering little girl if she grew up by getting hit. As the scene turned, Jang Seok was sitting all confused, thinking about something, while the others were a bit concerned about his current mood. Both of his friends started palling about finding the reason behind his current mood, as it was not going to be good for them. Also shattering their protagonist, he started remembering what he had witnessed at the rooftop with the lady's presence. He was confused about why he was thinking that much about it. On the other hand, Simjae was inquiring about Im Jong's health and her absence. Plo told her, as per the info, she was sick. Jang Seok entered into the conversation asking about it, and his lady told him that she was absent because she was sick. Was all sure that the lady was making an excuse to skip the school, while Simjae reassured him that it had been normal for her since ages. Even in middle school, she was the one having headaches or anemic attacks because she was low on hemoglobin. Protagonist was not ready to believe something like that and was calling it an excuse, while Simjae told him that it would be bad if she had received a shock from someone. Jang Seok, Aniclimax, was not ready to take such a burden on his shoulders and then turned away, asking the girl to head out to meet her if she was so much concerned about it. Still, he was wondering why everyone sided with that nuisance girl, and then started remembering about his past life when someone started bleeding, mine holding his legs for mercy, as being school friend. He just wanted to shake off this thought as it hadn't happened in that life yet, and was trying to convince himself that he was not at fault. Just then he heard the angel's voice, asking him if his earnest repentance was only worth that much. Parna was done with that voice, and he turned to find the angel's presence, leaving the other two looking at him, totally confused about his such an act. It was sure he was hearing things, but there was no presence. It was due an assurance about the angel, and for giving clarification that the angel was looking at him since the start, and whatever he did, it was witnessed by that being. Time fast-forwarded, and he was found screaming out, asking why he was the one helping that nuisance child while standing on the road, blasting in anger. There, showing his true identity, he was headed to find the place of Yunjeon, and after a long struggle he was able to finally reach her family's place. Even though her attitude was not good, she still lived in a quiet place. Suddenly the gate busted, and a yellow-haired man came out with alcohol in his hand, asking about the identity of the man. Protagonist confirmed about the house, while the man started screaming, cursing him, denying the fact he was confirming. He bought off from the place, and Jang Seok entered the house screaming out for Yunjeon. He was about to head out thinking she went for a play, but was stunned to see the lady lying in one corner of the room, losing her complete strength and all covered in bruises. As soon as she saw the presence of one of his friends, she started screaming, but her screams were of no use. She lost every bit of her strength and laid on the floor, helpless and all tied up. Jang Seok was turned off by something like that happening to her, so suddenly, and after a deep thought, he realized that the situation was more serious than he thought. It looked like the lady was in fear of something, clenching her body towards herself, but suddenly that old man appeared once again in the house, calling Jang Seok a thief, while telling about the identity of him in the presence of the organization. Jang Seok did not bother for a second and delivered one of the fear punches right on the face of the man. The man again tried to revert back, but it was too late as Jang Seok's next knee attack connected on the old man's face and he cussed him, telling that he was not worthy of being a father for sure. Realizing that it was getting too late and the lady needed doctor's attention for sure, he lifted her up, pondering that at first he was going to take her to the hospital nearby. His walk was once again interrupted by someone, and it was none other than Jang Sung, who was happy with the first meeting with the high cooler for sure. Jang Seok was stunned to see the presence of the Tiger Skull Gang's lower and higher candidates at the same time. Please understand, you are sure that things were coming much faster than expected. At that moment, Jang Sung looked at the old man and asked Jang Seok how he dared to barge into someone else's house, even was taking their daughter, without any permission. Jang was too pissed about him, punching the man, and Jang Seok did not even show a little flinch, telling him that he was one of the lowest members of the Tiger Skull Gang. Rage was in both of their eyes, but when Jang saw that the little girl was not doing well in his arms, he asked him to take her to the nearest hospital, and they would discuss other things when he comes back, giving assurance that then he was going to take care of the old geyser. Jang Seok finally headed out. Jang was taken back by the strength of a high cooler, punching down an active gang member without any resistance. Since then they turned to the hospital where Yan was lying on the bed, and the nurse was telling them that even if it would have been a little longer, then the chances of survival might have been reduced to zero. She told him that her immune system had been weak from the beginning, and she needed to take care of herself in any regard. At that time, once again he went back to his flashback, where he, along with other members of the group, were enjoying their victory over the Tiger Skull Gang. The only person in the middle of fame amongst all the gangsters was our protagonist, holding hands with a real baddie. He was telling all of them how he busted the leader of that group, and just then, suddenly someone grabbed Jang Seok's hand, introduced herself as Unjong, but one who graduated with him from the same school. Jang Seok did not recognize her and asked about her identity. She informed him that she was one of the slaves who were sold off at the time when they won over the Tiger Skull Gang. The reason she was present there was that her father was not able to pay off the debts. At that time, while offering the drink, Un was leading Jang Seok to take her out of that place. But being his previous self, he pushed the little girl, showing her an arrogant face, and asked why he would help a girl like her. He was not giving any kind of crap about the same school, as he was not remembering anything. Without wasting even a second, he called for the manager. The instructions were clear to the bar group. They needed to make sure that she worked days up and down and would serve every member of their group once they arrived. Yan started screaming in pain and crying in anger, while Jang Seok walked off without giving a shit. The protagonist was pretty sure that when he left, the only conclusion of her life was that she must have died and could not have a happy life. The question in his mind was, if he had dropped out from the school and became a gangster, then her life would be the same as it was going in the previous life. Out of study, the nurse asked for the bill, and Jang Seok told her that he had no money. Just then, Jang Sung arrived and told him that all the bills were paid, so he did not need to pay a penny. The protagonist was told about his presence at the location, and he told him that he was aware of every corner of that city after living there for 37 years. For the next information, he talked about the yellow-haired father who was not even worthy of being called one. But as a member of the gang, he needed to take care of him, and he did so. Jang Seok was impressed by Jang's initiative of helping the gang members who were not well on their feet and taking care of them. Out of the sudden, Jang started adjusting his watch, and after asking the name of Jang Seok, he slapped a tight punch on his face, telling him that he wanted to know the name of the person who dared to attack one of his family members. Jang Seok, stunned, turned to the man in anger, reconfirmed if that was all of his complete strength. Jang was impressed with the kid's attitude, as he was not even shivering a bit after being delivered such a powerful punch from one of the head members of the Tiger Skull Gang. The man then started playing with his hair, telling that he was interested, and that he was kind of an interesting boy, leaving Jang Seok to talk about the taunting he received. Little banter continued between both of them. Jang was calling him a boyfriend of Eun, while the other was denying such a filthiest thing. Before leaving, Jang asked the man to take care of Eun on his behalf, but before Jang Seok could explain even a bit, Jang left, asking him to pay respect the next time he saw them. While the man was leaving, Jang Seok realized that that character was much better than he had anticipated. But still, he was sure that a gangster would always be a gangster. There, while heading back home, he decided to take care of the angel and was definite in one regard. He was not going to kill anyone in the second life for sure. And if that angel was testing him right, then he would make the presence of each and everyone who had been part of his deadliest past life at once. He wanted to tell the angel that he was a temperamental person who was going to first before talking. He suddenly felt the requirement for a cigarette, so he took one and started licking the lollipop in place of the cigarette. Then suddenly, he was motivated to the utmost strength. He started challenging the angel, stating that he was going to live the life as he pleased. For the remaining time, the man was already informed that whatever he did, he was going to hell for sure. He was acting really strange while telling the angel that he would live his life freely in his good way, and if the angel wanted to take his life, he could take it right then. Unbeknownst to him, someone was standing on top of a pole giggling and telling Jang Seok that he hadn't really changed and so was going to be looked for a little more while. Since then, turning to the next day, Jang Seok was getting ready for school once again, and it was quite unexpected for him to find his father at the place at that time. When he was tying his shoes, his father was suffering from intense shoulder pain, while his son was asking him to just rest and see a doctor because it was going to get worse if he continued his physical labor. Father denied it, took the money, and when the son looked at his father's state, he offered to drop out from school as he was not doing too well and could earn some living for their family. Being a typical father, he did not like it and banged his son on his forehead with an intense sponge. He wanted to tell the little kid that it was not like he was not doing well, but he was not giving his best to do well. The second question came from the man, where he asked if he was doing and creating ruckus while fighting with the others, still in school or not. Jang Seok denied it at first, but when the old memories came to his mind, he stated that it changed depending on the situation he was currently in. He was not fighting. Father was pissed once again by his son's explanation and showed Jang Seok, who decided to just shake off from the location as he knew that something bad was coming up. Heading out from there, he did not like his father trying to control him. For the next thought of the day, he wondered about how Yeonjong would be doing, and if she would be better now. His imagination told him that the girl must be ready to do anything because he was the one who helped her and took her to the hospital in such a miserable state. But his expectations were crushed to pieces as soon as he reached school and saw that girl lying on the table with her head down, giving no Jang Seok. Being concerned, he inquired about her health, and the others informed that she had been like that ever since she arrived and was asking for alone time. Jang Seok was not among the ones who were going to give her whatever she was for, and so he added out and asked her if she had something to say to him or not. In return, he got what he was saying to everyone in the first meeting and was done by such a declaration. For reconfirmation, when he asked, she repeated the same words, leaving Jang Seok totally confused by such a self-centered girl. Taking these words into consideration, he left the place, telling her that he was not looking for anything in particular from her in any case. He looked too embarrassed for his thoughts, and when he was about to leave, that girl looked at him and started cussing, realizing that it was because of him that her school life had ended. On the other hand, she was more embarrassed because that man had seen her in a compromising state and was sure that he was going to use it as a weakness against her. Out of nowhere, her two subordinates arrived and were asking for the well-being of the lady, shocking her. If those guys are going to talk to her, they are, and both of them took the lady to the rooftop while giggling even much more than required. At the rooftop, Yeonjong realized that there were a lot of people who had eyes on Jang Seok, and for that she just needed to take care of all of them arriving inside the school to beat him up. There was something fishy from the start, and those girls showed their true attitude by blocking the gate of the rooftop using a wooden block. Out of nowhere, Yeonjong was bashed by someone right on the floor, and it turned out that there were 3 delinquents waiting for her at that location since the start. She was earlier feared by them, but at that moment, when she tried to tell them that she was one of the daughters of a Tiger Skull gang member, none of them paid any kind of attention to it. They asked why she did not use that power when Jang Seok passed her in front of everyone, seeing someone turning dirty, and as soon as she realized that she was not going to enjoy this, she started pushing herself back while the delinquents were going to bully her at any case. They had the motivation that if Jang Seok could do it, then they also could, without any hesitation. Yeonjong was stunned and started begging for help from both of her friends. However, none of them was ready to do so as they thought that she was paying for a lie, nothing else. The delinquent hands were approaching closer and closer to the girl, and she was pondering in her mind that in any case she was not lying, but was trying her best to not get her family exposed in front of everyone, where she was trying to find an environment where she was not going to be and live a peaceful life. Her screams raised and her tears flew from her eyes like anything. The delinquents were not worried about her screams as they thought that no one would come since the gate was locked, but their intentions were bad. As soon as the gate was broken with a single kick by Jang Seok, both the girls and the 3 delinquents were shocked after being quieted by one of the strongest persons of the school. Whatever the case may be, Jang Seok did not like such an attitude in his rule. As he entered the scene, he asked all of them to continue what they were doing, and they should not stop any case. He was calmly pissed at that time but was acting cool with such happenings. Everyone realized at first that the man was joking for sure, and for the first time in a long while, Yeonjong showed some kind of ray of hope emerging from the man. The delinquent was not able to uphold his saying and then screamed out, asking why he was playing so nice, if he was the one who asked them to do so in the first place. Protagonist did not like that at all, and then grabbed that delinquent by his neck, raising him into the air, asking him to just repeat what he said. As regards if those were the delinquents who were going to crawl on the floor if someone had the power. However, he took it easy as soon as that person lost it. With that declaration, he put the man on the ground and then made another declaration, stating that they should announce in the school that if anyone laid a hand on Yanjiang, then he would kill them. All 5 of them ran off from the rooftop, grinning in anger. While Lady was still lying on the floor trying to get up, she was so stunned that she, with tears in her eyes, started burdening Zhang Xiak with a lot of questions, including why he was doing such things and if he was making a joke of her in front of everyone. She just needed an explanation. Zhang Xiak, with a wink of an eye, told her that it was not his intention at all. And all of that came from one single cute soft girl, Sim Jae. Thun Zhang was taken aback with that presence, as she was not sure why that girl was helping him, even when she had said so many wrong and degrading words towards her, in order to degrade her self-respect in front of everyone. Sim Jae started crying. Sir Zhang Xiak entered the conversation and told her that no one was as pathetic as she was, and then further told her that while she was trying to act delinquent to save her family, Sim Jae was speaking about her being worried from the start. Sim too held the lady's hand and told her that even though she was hurt a few days ago, that pain was nothing comparable to what she was bearing of not being able to hang out with someone like her. With declaration and a red face, Sim Jae asked her to be on her side once again as a friend. Anjan did not say a single word and then stood up from the location it added to the classroom, wondering what she was doing all that time today, setting herself among the others. At that time, Zhang Xiak believed that he had cured all the issues for the moment and could think at the top of his head. There he was going to challenge the angel once again, asking what he was planning to send for the next time in the near future. As the scene turned to a shabby place at Sampo Gang, a man was being passed by some of the bullies pathetically, and without any mercy, continuously begging for mercy from all of them in any regards. As the camera angle changed, we could see a man sitting on the table, introduced as the current gang's boss, Zhou Bongqiu. He didn't look like someone who would give forgiveness to the man who was not even able to take care of a single task or handling the Tiger Gang. That man again begged for mercy for just one more chance and was ready to pay out for whatever he had done in any other regards. Such a declaration was enough for the filthy man, and he praised the determination and then asked his subordinates to take the boy to the doctor and take out all his on-runs to sell off and make money for whatever they could to be invested in the gang. It looked so merciless that even the man was ready to do whatever he wanted to. He was given such faith by the Sampo Gang. The leader then turned to one of his men, who was the commander of the gang, asking why they were recruiting such bullshit into the gang, who were good for nothing. At that time, he was just thinking of having a member like Zhang Sun. So Yim showed him a picture of our protagonist, stating that he might be useful in his purpose for sure. The leader did not like to see a high schooler in a uniform being presented by one of his commanders to be recruited, so that commander further told him that the man was taking care of the original boss of Sampo High by himself, including all delinquents since then. He was for the price of being added to the list. However, the leader did not like it even a bit and then reconfirmed if a commander of the group was asking them to recruit a high schooler of the second year under his wing. To regain his master's trust, Yem added that it looks like Zhang Sun had eyes on him because, as per the past reports, he was seen contacting and conversing with Zhang Xiak in Journal Hospital. The leader wondered if Zhang Sun was training that man to emerge as the new commander of the Tiger Group, and with that thought, if he was sure that something like that was going to happen, they needed to be careful that such a man would not join the Tiger Skull Group. With that declaration, he asked his commander to bring him to join the wing. On another day at the school, there were still chattering sounds among the students who were discussing petty things. Just then, after Zhang Xiak passed through the corridor, everyone started greeting him, as if he was the one they had been waiting for since the beginning. As said, it had already been 2 weeks since he was declared the strongest in the school, and because of some reasons, there was peace around it. The only reason he remembered was him banning all acts of stealing, bullying, and delinquent behavior from the school. As said, there were protesters against it, screaming why he was doing such things and why they should follow him. However, they all calmed down with a few punches by Zhang Xiak, and after realizing this, they disappeared, showing no signs of delinquency. Just then, Sim Jae arrived along with her friend and waved at Zhang Xiak, asking how he was doing. Looking on her face, it was clear that she had come out of her loneliness and was more confident with her new hairstyle. From that day onwards, Lun Zhang was always accompanied by Zhang Xiak's girl, and somehow she felt a little embarrassed. She arrived in the middle of the conversation, giggling while mocking Zhang Xiak for his late presence. She was the third character doing fine at her Miss Eve list. The fourth member was Cam Yang, who he had not seen for a while. After the last outburst, he was just stuck with one single problem, and at that moment, A man called him and bowed in front of Jang Seok with huge respect, calling him Big Brother. Jang Seok in some cases did not like such kind of respect, and that man turned out to be the professional fighter who had continuously called him Elder Brother with utmost respect, remembering the fight, which he himself started. Jang Seok mocked him, asking why he was being so respectful when he had been a dead bastard last time. The other man just tried to shake off the conversation. Jang Seok walked off from the location as he had no longer any intentions of acting like a delinquent in the school, but unexpectedly, the man told him that it was the only reason he wanted to follow him. From the beginning, that man had been impressed by his immense power and was going to follow him if he formed a group. However, he was shocked to see that Jang Seok didn't even form a single one, and was doing and correcting everything by his own standards. His actions and approaches were giving him only one single clarification: the strongest person in the school does not require any kind of power force. It was at that point in time when the man considered him as the elder brother for life, and in the end, he was the one who had been taken down and was ready to face anything from that little bastard. After school, Simjae asked Jang Seok out, however he denied, stating that he had to make dinner for his father. Just then, some casual person started asking for Jang Seok's help with his bag, and he initiated the game of the bag. But after realizing that it was the creepiest guy from earlier, he took off his bag and asked if the man was really talking to him. Since the beginning, the man had intentions to walk Jang Seok to find out where he really lived, not information one should refer to his friends for sure. Both of them walked down their hallway and were inquired by two big men blocking their way to the narrow stairs. They were looking in with bad intentions, but Jang Seok was able to understand a little bit of his presence. Their attention suddenly was grabbed by someone else, and when both of them turned, they found that it was the yellow-haired gangsters with a bat, and along with a man in their presence, there was only one intention: to kill our protagonist. That yellow man continuously started cussing our protagonist, and when he was in the middle of speaking, the man behind him raised his hand and delivered a powerful slap on the right cheek of the man, acting like he was the superior one. He didn't like such an attitude coming from a lowly kid, and so he walked off, asking who was Jang Seok amongst both of them. The man told him, but Jang Seok was not liking the situation, and things only got worse when that tall, bulky man asked him to just follow to the point. He wanted to know, but none of it was making any kind of sense. Until then, he had done nothing to be indulged with the Sampo gang. He was trying to analyze the reason behind their presence at the location, knowing that if he was taken away from the location, then he was done for sure. At that moment, he started rising for a sneak attack on both of them, taking them down and running from the situation. However, his only problem was the presence of his subordinate behind him, whom he called an idiot. Instantly, Jang Seok denied that thought and started running at the man with a clean fist, acting like he was going to deliver a punch, while the man stood with a grin on his face waiting for his arrival. He went down to the floor, and out of nowhere, Jang Seok took some coins out of his pocket and threw them directly at the man to make him lose his concentration. The man tried to protect himself from the sticky coins and stumbled. The yellow gangster was not liking it at all and was stunned by such an action. As Jang Seok was aware that he would not be able to do anything to the big monster, however, he, in any case, was not going to rush without doing anything. So he delivered one of the deadliest kicks to the yellow-haired man and pinned him down to the floor. Everything was going as per the plan. It was time for him to run away, but unexpectedly, that monster had already pinned his target against the subordinate accompanying him. He then asked the man to stop, or else he would break the limbs of the kid, born to be an idiot. His eyes were full of anger, while Jang Seok was boiling with rage at the situation. Jang Seok was thinking that he needed to be selfish, as he was not aware of what would happen if he went with those guys while the man was still cleaning and asking him to come quietly with him. One of his subordinates started screaming, asking the man to run while forgetting about him. There was something like an action from a side hero. The tall young man did not like it and delivered a powerful punch to the kid's belly, making him shut up. He then asked Jang Seok if he was really going to abandon one of his friends. Jang Seok didn't pay any attention to it, and then started driving from the location while the others were cursing him for such actions. That man was totally aware that if he let him off from there, he would be a pain in his ass. But for his own good cause, he decided to take out his anger on the man who had made him rush away from the location. He called that idiot and asked why he did so, asking the man to run away without thinking about himself. Jang Seok's friend asked him what the identity of those people was, and the person with the green hair told him not to be worried if they found out who they were. After hearing the name that they were from the Sampo gang, his friend's face grew dull and duller with each passing second. It looked like Jang Seok was still running while his friend was caught by his collar, ready to have his limbs broken piece by piece. Regrets weren't going to pay off, and the man did not like being stuck in someone else's discussion. It was then that Jang Seok successfully planned his sneak attack and ran to the man from behind, delivering a precise hit to his spine. That attack was enough to put him down on the floor, and Jang Seok found the time to call his subordinate to just run away and call the police. Aniclimax himself was going to such a position in order to stop them from attacking both present at once. The idiot was not going to obey and was terrified to know that they were from such an organization. So Zhang Xiao bumped his head with a single punch and told him that it was nothing special, and he was going to take care of them as their elder brother. The battle continued, and he took down one of them with just a single kick, then asked the man once again to just run away and call the police, as his friend would only get in the way. His friend had tears in his eyes, and he started running away from the location, telling him that he was going to call the police. He only had to hold them all for a moment. Zhang Xiao, while battling with the gangsters, was happy that he had conducted one more good deed, while his friend, running to the police, was thinking that he would definitely see him again. But that certainty turned pale when he saw a different presence waiting for him around the corner of the street. He was the current commander of the Sampo gang, Yim, and he had a different kind of grin on his face. On the other side of the street, Zhang Xiao was still battling those gangsters, taking them down with fewer and fewer punches. After a long struggle, it looked like he was done with the guys. Just then, that man arrived from behind, telling him that he surely was not a common high schooler. It was the only reason that the Tiger Gang was interested in him. To the surprise of Zhang Xiao, Yim was carrying that idiot from afore, all beaten up. Zhang Xiao was not able to hide his anger, and then rushed at the man with an intent to kill, to see his friend being beaten like that. However, as the commander of such a high organization, he was attacked on his chin with Zhang Xiao's elbow, perfectly and professionally. That was a counter he had never expected from the group. Zhang Xiao, once again, fell into the pit and started attacking him. Once again, he was taken down with perfection, as Yim predicted each and every move. For the second time, he attacked his back neck, and while grabbing him by the face, he pushed him onto the floor, telling him that he was just a kid who needed more treatment. Zhang Xiao was not able to understand where such a monster arrived with such ridiculous strength. Yim told him that without proper technique, any battle fought in the street is just a normal street fight. Those words were enough for Zhang Xiao to make him realize that Yim was the strongest in the entire city, and the one who had been his teacher in the past life. The one and only Commander Yim. Zhang Xiao then started remembering and went into a flashback where he first met that man. As expected, the battle was going on, and it was the time they were fighting with the enemy gang, the Tiger Gang. On one hand, Zhang Xiao was still stumbling to get a hold of his enemies, while on the other side, he saw the commander taking down numerous men all by himself, making the others stop and look at him. His calmness was evident, and even when the enemy tried to attack him, he blocked them and delivered punches like it was nothing, just an easy walk in the park task for him. Another man came from behind and tried to attack him in a duel, but it was too late, as the commander noticed his presence. While blocking the attack with one hand, he delivered a powerful punch right on the man's face, taking him down in one single blow. When the others saw that he had someone like them in his place, they started shivering in fear. For the plan, they all headed out to attack as a group. Even that group for the commander was like moths to a flame. Zhang Xiao realized that all those men were on the floor because his actions had no excessive movements. It was at that moment that he felt awe for the first time, seeing someone with that kind of power. That was the only reason he asked the commander to teach him, even though he was at such a low level. Every time he was in training, he was the one lying on the ground with just one attack from the commander, who continuously told him in every training session that he did mean to attack head-on without thinking. But for Zhang Xiao, he asked for confirmation if the commander wanted him to attack from behind, which would not be something a real man would do. Those words pinned the commander deep, and he delivered a kick to Zhang Xiao's chest, telling him that he was a gangster, and there was nothing right or wrong for him in any case. What mattered was winning the battle. His final instructions at that time were that he did not need to worry about methods and should find a way to survive in the worst of times. Turning to the present, Yim was still asking the man if he really understood the concept, and Zhang Xiao was confused, wondering how that man had reached such a high position at such an early stage. The man was standing up front with one leg on the chest. Zhang Xiao had the feeling that there was no one who could beat him in strength or in fights. In the end, he agreed to follow him while the commander told him that he needed to pick his opponent carefully from then on. Even though it looked like Zhang Xiao had agreed, he was planning something else. He then told him that he was not going to focus on methods for winning, and with that intention, he threw a handful of sand into the man's eyes, stumbling on his own actions. The moment his opponent was rubbing his eyes, it was his chance, and he went to deliver the punch. He was delivering it to his schoolmates, but as expected, that beat was not successful. When his punch was blocked, the commander praised his strategy of launching a surprise attack, but that wouldn't work on him. And when the punch was just an inch away from Zhang Xiao, he realized that he had really messed up. On the other side, where Sim-Jae was walking for the treat, she looked a little depressed and concerned. She started wondering what that feeling was as she thought about Zhang Xiao's condition, whether it would be good or not. When he opened his eyes, he heard someone talking about him taking down 4 guys at once. When the man was awake, he saw the presence of the commander and the man standing behind him, looking at him continuously. The leader of the group was concerned about what the commander had done. However, for the commander, he had just taught him a lesson. He was still thinking about where he was, and when the leader came closer to him, asking about his identity and praising him for the rumors of taking down numerous students at once, he decided to introduce himself. Jang Seok, Anicaps confided the identity of that man as he was the gang boss, and if he was present there, it was clear that the man was directed to the center of the Sampo gang headquarters. Even the leader was impressed with the beautiful place of our protagonist and was wondering to meet him for a long time. From the beginning, he wanted him to make him a part of the wedding and was ready to do whatever he had to do there. Jang Seok was again at the peak of his boiling point and did not like the words of flattery from the leader. It looked like he was going to deliver a powerful punch right on the face of the man without any hesitation. As the dream broke, he was thinking of doing that only if he was not tied up. The man then started pointing out that he was at that location when he was not that famous, thinking about the situation. He remembered what he had done during all that time, fighting the gangsters and the school bosses and winning over them in just a few moments of time. This was the reason he had been holding such attention from the beginning of his second birth. He would try and be a good person, but was not able to because of some circumstances, and he had to face the other hand when the commander was looking at the man. He realized that something was wrong from the beginning. The first reason was that he had no fear after being summoned by such a gang member, and the second one was the words that he had said during the battle on the ground. He just couldn't shake the feeling that he was not a normal high schooler for sure. Suddenly, Jang Seok started laughing, making the other two standing in front of him totally confused. When the leader inquired about it, Jang Seok started mocking him, asking that even though he had been famous recently and was standing in front of the boss of the gang, they were scared of a school kid and had tied him to the chairs at the core of the headquarters. Those words were an eye-opener for the leader as well as the commander. The leader, being excited even more, called the brat a lively one who was going to achieve something in his near future for sure. To further emphasize, he grabbed his hair, seeking some kind of fear in his eyes, but Jang Seok, being stubborn, asked him to do it. When his hands were untied after deep thought, the leader announced that he was going to untie him while the commander tried to tell the man that the kid was surely plotting something, and it wasn't as simple as it looked. The leader did not like the intervention from his subordinate over his command and was looking, and it was what Jang Seok had expected from the beginning. That the leader was an emotional character, while the commander was a practical one. Just then, he started planning what he had to do once his hands were untied. The only plan for survival in that case was grabbing the leader and taking him as the bait to get out of the headquarters alive. It was a temporary solution. As something was fixed, they were going to follow him to the end of his life. But for then, even the temporary solution would do. The process was in between when both of them heard something happening inside the headquarters. A man entered the room and informed them that the Tiger Gang was inside the building. But before he could complete the sentence, he was hit by a powerful kick from the backside of the door. As all of them arrived, it was the top lead member of the Tiger Skull Gang, Jang Seok. Even Jang Seok was surprised by his presence, and so the leader of the Sampo Gang inquired if he was trying to start a war. Jang Seok answered the question by asking if gangs were feeding on children, and those words were irritating to the subordinate standing behind the leader. Everyone was waiting for the leader while he allowed the members of the Tiger Gang to take away the kid. They required reassurance, and the man again repeated that he was allowing them to take away the kid and do whatever they pleased. However, it was not going to be easy in the man's head. In the end, successfully, Jang Seok's hands were untied, and the top member asked Jang Seok to head out. The leader, at first, showed no resistance, but then asked Jang Seok to meet in a better place. Jang Seok denied, stating that he never wanted to meet him again, whatever the case may be. But it was not expected that the great Jang Seok would rush personally to save a kid, and it was the reason he was going to take that bastard for sure. Things were getting interesting in the eyes of the commander, who was still pondering about what the identity of that man was, as he surely was not high schooler. As they exited the headquarters, Jang Seok was wondering why those guys were there and how they had found him. Jang asked him to just follow without speaking another word. However, Jang Seok did not like it and shook the shoulder of the man, asking for an explanation. It was like he was being so friendly, and out of a sudden, a hand came from his right side, catching him and pushing him against the wall, asking if he was even aware of what he was doing and to who he was putting his head on. That man was angry, and even though all of them had gone to so much trouble, Jang Seok was acting almighty. Jang Seok continued his bartering, thinking of killing him, and since Jang was the only mediator between them, he asked both of them to stop. None of them were listening. The subordinate apologized for his actions, and Sir Jang then told him that both of the groups, Sampo and Tiger Skull, were rivals fighting to gain control over the city since the beginning. Even though the fights were intense, they had received reports that Sampo Gang was planning something, and as a lieutenant, he went out on a patrol that day. Suddenly, he met a man with a big chin personality, and those words reminded Jang Seok of the sickle person that was his own subordinate, Junsu. Out of concern, he inquired about his health, and the man informed him that his friend had already been sent to the hospital and was being taken care of. The man was introducing himself by name even after being hurt to such an extent. Then Zhang asked Zhang Xiak to follow him as they needed to get out of the turf. However, Zhang Xiak added a different manner and then asked why he would head out to a gangster's headquarters, as both of them were similar in his eyes. Further, while leaving the place, he asked all of them to stop being friendly, and he did not want to be noticed by any of the gang members. Others were pissed. However, Zhang realized and asked them to stop and let him leave while heading out to his own place. Zhang Xiak was using himself continuously, remembering what the leader of the Sampo gang had said. That man had even planned to meet him in the near future under different conditions, and by thinking all those words continuously, he was wondering what he was supposed to do. He was deeply torn inside, well aware that it was all the doing of the angel who had pushed him to that. As the scene turned, Zhang Xiak's father was already home and wondering if his own son was not that place. His shoulders were aching from the beginning, and just then he noticed that Zhang Xiak's room was lit up. Hearing the noise, he wondered if that was a burglar who had entered their house. His intentions were shattered when he entered the room and found his son playing with a mess, collecting something in a particular carton box. So he inquired about what he was doing. Zhang Xiak raised his eyes and then told him that they were about to leave the city, and that was the reason behind why they needed to gather whatever they could from the house. Father wanted to know a bit more about it, and so when he saw Zhang Xiak's face all covered in bruises and slightly reddish, he became concerned and asked if he had been beaten up or something. The father, being practical, inquired with the man why he was saying that they were about to leave the place. Further question stands if they had the money required for relocation. Zhang Xiak didn't matter as the Sampo gang was behind them from that point. His father was not aware of it. In any case, and when asked for confirmation, Zhang Xiak told him that there was something everyone should run from while not paying any self-respect to their own character. For a while his father heard the conversation and waited until Zhang Xiak continued packing. He then took the pen, which he bought to fight with a burglar, and attacked the back of Zhang Xiak's head. That was sudden, and when the man asked about it, he told him that he was an old bastard, taking care of his son, so he should just sleep for the moment. Everything blackened from his end. When Zhang Xiak woke up in the morning, he wondered what time it was. He had been knocked out. Just then he found a paper note lying beside him, and it was written by his father, stating that he had already informed the school that Zhang Xiak was not going to be there, so he should just rest for the day. It wasn't about the school for sure, and after a deep thought like a man, he realized that his father was in the right place. There was no way they could just exit the place and settle somewhere else without having any money, so he was keen to propose the move, and as he was not able to think even about what they were supposed to do if they were going to stay, it was surely dangerous. His thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. Someone was asking for his presence. Zhang Xiak was done and was green with anger. In order to win the fight, he grabbed a baseball bat, ready to knock him down and make the mistake once again. Even if it was his second birth or second chance, he was not going to join that group in his life again. The man behind the door still hadn't opened it, and Zhang Xiak was gritting his teeth. He had been waiting all this time for the man to enter, ready to pull off a home run like a baseball. Out of nowhere from the Sampo gang, he even knew where the keys were, and started searching under the flask. Zhang Xiak was done, realizing that the man was still aware of something serious. It was then that the man opened the door, and Zhang Xiak immediately started attacking him, calling him a delinquent bastard. He aimed for the man's body, but somehow, the man dodged it and asked him to stop while showing something on his face. As the tension eased, it was revealed that the man was from the police department named Yang Sung, who asked him to come to the police station for a chat. Both Zhang Xiak and Yun Zhang were stunned to hear those words from the detective, and it turned out that she had been hiding behind the wall of Zhang Xiak's home, wondering what he had really done at that moment. She had arrived to help him with the situation. The scene then shifted to the police station, where Zhang Xiak felt completely uncomfortable in the environment. Even looking at the cage, she felt a sense of disturbance in the place. The detective was his usual mean self, calling Zhang Xiak a puppy, then telling him that it was his father who had informed the police station that he was being chased by the Sampo gang. This was something his father should not have interfered with, and Zhang Xiak didn't like a detective's actions, calling them unnecessary. However, after thinking it over like a good man, he realized that this was the first time in his life that his father had taken something he said seriously without any evidence. The detective then asked what was really going on with him being chased by that organization, but Zhang Xiak just shrugged off the question. Just then, another detective entered, bringing one of the delinquents who was seated next to Zhang Xiak. He seemed to be a stubborn one. As soon as he saw the man sitting idly in the chair, he bumped him on the head and began mocking him, asking what a teenager like him was doing in such a place. In his eyes, this man would be one of the ugliest guys in the future. The redhead suddenly got up from his chair, attacking the man with a fist straight to his nose, knocking him to the ground. The attack was fierce, and even the detective standing beside the man was totally stunned by the blow. Jang Seok was boiling with anger, while the man lying on the ground asked how he dared to punch someone in a police station. The man looking at the culprit didn't care whether it was in the police station or at home. The redhead had tried to attack him again, but it was stopped by Young Sung, who told him to control himself, at least in the police station. Jang Seok came to his senses, realizing that he was so riled up by what happened yesterday that he wasn't thinking straight. Both of them then went to the rooftop of the police station, where the man, sitting with a cup of coffee, tried to mock Jang Seok. The man thought about it, realizing that whatever happened yesterday was still on his mind, and yet he had no time to discuss it. Without saying anything, he started heading back from the place. Young Sung asked about Jang Seok's complaints with his father. However, Jang Seok denied it, stating that he had just gotten into a fight with some delinquents and got injured. The reason he said this was that he believed a policeman like Young Sung wouldn't be able to do anything against such an organization. There was no point in telling him anything out of the blue. Young Sung started speaking, first mentioning his subordinate Junsu. He added that he knew the redhead man was one of the top-notch members of the current Strawmas group at Sampo High, and he was also the one who had run into the Tiger Gang and the Sampo Gang multiple times. His classmate had already been admitted to the hospital for the past 2 weeks. Every piece of information was pinpointed, and Jang Seok realized that Young Sung already knew everything. At that moment, Young Sung, the 18-year-old kid, was ready to discuss whatever matters were still open. As the scenes returned to the police station, Young Sung told Jang Seok that he knew everything he had gone through. However, Jang Seok frowned and asked for proof. All the while, Young Sung was analyzing him, believing that he was not an ordinary high school student, one who had no fear in his eyes. Even sitting in the police room, one thing was for sure. No matter how strong a high school student might be, one could not punch someone in the middle of the police station like it was nothing. Furthermore, he had the courage to fight with the Sampo Gang and an acquaintance of the Tiger Gang's top-notch members. In any case, Young Sung felt that the man was hiding something, and with that thought, he asked the man if this Sampo Gang was threatening him. That hit right on the point, and it made the detective stand up, ready to leave without discussing anything further. He ordered the man to bring some water or something if he wanted to discuss. Jang Seok knew that the man wouldn't be able to help him with anything, but just then, a boy appeared from nowhere and asked if he was really running away. Already Jang Seok was full of anger towards the angel, and it was a trigger point as he turned and asked if the boy was aware of what the man was going through. Out of nowhere, the angel appeared right in front of him, just as he had the first time, and told him that he was really disappointed. The angel said he was not fulfilling his promise to rectify past mistakes. Protagonist had already had enough of his good deeds and told the man that he had already given his all to be on the right side of every mistake for the last time, and so he asked him if what was his expectation if not that. The angel told him that it was his own misunderstanding, as there was no chance that he could be perfect in everything. He was to remember all he had gone through during his second life and in school. In any case, he couldn't understand what the angel wanted from him, even though he was good at fighting and swearing at everyone. He was trying to do his best so that his life wouldn't get ruined in all the cases. He was just pissed at the members of the Sampo Gang, and it was even understandable by the angel. In any case, he wasn't going to tell him how his life was to be given advice. It was very simple. He should not deny any help being provided by someone else, especially from the policeman sitting beside him. So Jang Seok wondered what would happen if he cooperated with the memory of the man and reminded him that he had already met the detective, the man who had given his life to save him. Jang Seok wrote down the name on the person and started remembering, flashing back to the time when it was raining at night and he was running from a policeman. The policeman who was following him was none other than the same man who had continuously asked him to stop. As soon as the cut arrived, he lost his balance and slipped on his own feet, losing one of his shoes into the air. The man finally caught him at the moment when he tried to run away. The policeman used his experience and blocked his hands to stop him from running. Jang Seok, still in his previous mode, continued cussing the man while the man told him to be ashamed in front of his deceased father. He then stated that his father had worried about him until the end, and that he had stepped into that dirty mud once again after his father's death. Before he could understand, the man knew about his father. A bright light arrived in their face, and they had no time to think about what to do. He wasn't able to move his leg just in time, and so the man played an important role, pushing Jang Seok out of the way of a truck. While falling down, he clearly saw the fear in the man's eyes. The man accepted his fate and lost his life just to save him from such a mishap. It seemed like time passed too just slowly, and the policeman saw him passing out in the middle of something, so he asked the reason for him passing out in the middle of his walk. Now Jang Seok was sure that this was the same policeman who had given his life for him. The policeman was not ready for such an easing out moment, and out of nowhere, Jang Seok agreed to tell him everything he had gone through. He was there to tell him everything, starting with the Sampo Gang and the Tiger Gang, and further asking for help from him. Outside the police station, Yoon-jong was roaming here and there. At some point, when the policeman inquired if there was something he could help with, she denied and was pissed at Jang Seok. wondering what kind of trouble he had gotten himself into. Inside the police station, the policeman was done with writing everything down and then thanked Jang Sia for cooperating with the procedure. Jang Sia ended up telling his relationship with everyone and the reason why he was being chased by them. The only part left for me information was about the angel, or else she surely would have been taken to a mental hospital. The policeman was searching for tangible information but ended up with much more to investigate about the gangs. The policeman was then more interested in Jang Siak being a friend of Jang Seon, but Jang Siak denied it, saying it was not true at all. The policeman then pressed him for telling the truth and wondered what had changed his mind at that time. Jang Siak remembered the incident and what the policeman had sacrificed for him, so he denied it. As the man apologized for his mistake, he went outside and Yeon-jong screamed out, starting to ask numerous questions about his arrival at the police station. Jang Siak told her that she was just passing by and saw him getting inside, which was the reason he followed her. Dia said nothing on his mind about the explanation he should give. Then the old detective came to the rescue, telling her that he had just called him to provide some help. He was called dead. His girlfriend tried to console everything, and both of them were there on their way back home. Jang Siak asked if she was following him home. She, blushing red, told him that she was just following him because she was concerned if he was sick or something, and the second reason was that he had also visited her home at the time of need. Jang Siak was also blushing but then turned his face, wondering how he could find a girl like her, so cute, even though she was one of the delinquents. Their conversation then turned to Sim-ja, and Jang Siak asked her if she really apologized for her misdeeds. Eun-jong confirmed it and further continued that she was a nice girl, someone not to be worried about in her heart. It seemed like nothing was going to disappear, and it was the only reason that whenever they were together, she was the one feeling sorry for whatever she had done. Those statements made Jang Siak think about what he had done to others, including what he did to his own girls or after killing one of his friends and making one of his classmates beg for mercy. It was an eye-opener for him and gave him the realization that even though he was reincarnated, whatever he had done still remained. All those flashbacks were clarified by the angel, who said that his deeds would not be passed on in any case. Out of nowhere, he started calling himself a redeemable trash, and Yeon-jong began to call him that, but she said it in absolute fun. However, he agreed with seriousness, reaching a location. Jang Siak waved off, asking her to be careful going back home. Then she asked him to wait for a second. She, while hesitating, asked if he had not eaten, and if he wanted to eat together. Jang Siak was stunned, and when he saw the cute girl cooking a meal inside his house, he couldn't understand what kind of situation that was and why such a delinquent was preparing a meal in his house. Looking at it, he somehow enjoyed the moment. Further, comparing both the friends to a puppy and a cat, it was then when that lady stood in front of him, asking him to eat while it was still warm. As the food was so good, at least he was not disliking it, and further asked why she made porridge out of everything. The only reason she made that was because she thought he was sick. As soon as they took the first bite while stumbling, she asked him how it was. The answer was expected. It was tasting good, and that declaration made Eun-jong's face blush. She immediately turned her face around and stated that she was already aware of it from the beginning. At first, Jang Siak was confused, but then he was sure of it from the beginning. With his experience of 38 years, he realized the woman was telling him that the girl present there was looking for something from him. He believed that her reason for doing so was because he was the one who saved her and helped her family do better in the surroundings. After a while, they were all done eating, and so Yeon-jong decided to head out to clean. Jang Siak denied it and grabbed her by the hand, asking her to listen to his next action. It was something never expected from him. As he lifted her hand up and called her a pretty cute girl, tension between both of them arose, reaching its peak. When both of them were about to chuckle with their lips as a love language, both lost their eyes in the moment. However, Jang Siak decided to give a sneak peek and found that the girl was totally stumbling in confusion. To take her out of that mood, he flicked his finger, which was normal for him when doing it to other girls, and then asked her what she was doing by acting in all that regard. Her face started turning even more red when Jang Siak bluntly asked what she was planning by showing such an attitude and such a cute face. The lady had enough of that and screamed out, denying something like that. She stated that she was aware that she was acting weird, but it was only because of the expression he made while stopping her from asking for something like this. Once again, the tension rose as Jang Siak looked at the lady, who looked away, blushing. She wanted to tell him that she had never seen him make such an expression. As soon as Jang Siak heard that, he started laughing like nothing happened, and then with his palm on his head, wondered if he was able to worry a delinquent like Yeon-jong. His hands suddenly rose up and patted her on the head, consoling her and telling her that it was because of her that he was feeling so well. At that moment, such a kind gesture was never expected from him, but somehow it fulfilled its purpose. Heading back out from the house, Jang Siak told everything to the lady so she would realize that it was the Sampo gang who had done all that to him. Further, when she inquired about their character, Jang Seok, without thinking, spoke up that it looked like he was somehow connected to them and ending up with them once again. The conversation was caught up by the lady, and when she asked, he denied it. Clicking in his mind, the lady reconfirmed that was the reason he had been acting so nicely all these days. However, Jang Seok denied it, stating that you really had changed, and Yeonjong herself gave him the assurance. She herself never imagined him being in such a character where he wasn't running and fighting everyone like it was nothing but just a piece of walking cake. Even Jang Seok agreed, because once before he was about to give up on school, but at that moment he was completely fine. Surely he was going to live. The moment of life was weak as always, even though the delinquent never fully understood the words he wanted to speak and pronounced them wrongly. That was a little embarrassing for sure. Both the lady and the man were sure that both of them had surely changed. As expected, behind the reason she came there, she made the first move. With heels on her legs, she tried to close the distance between him and Jang Seok, and then successfully kissed him on the lips, making him blush at what just happened. For an explanation, she told him that it was revenge for messing with her earlier, and without wasting even a second out of embarrassment, she started running off from there, leaving Jang Seok feeling used. On the other side of the road, when she finally caught her breath, she thought to herself that she was crazy for doing such an act and wonder how she was going to face that man tomorrow. It was really embarrassing. The scene then turned to Jang Seok's school, where some of the students were already waiting for his presence for a long time. One of them informed the others that Jang Seok was not going to be at the school for that day. Two others started discussing whether the rumors of him attacking some of the gang members were true in any regard or not. They believed that if that was true, then how could he dare to do such a thing out of nowhere? Ex-school's strongest man Park Seok appeared and found an opportunity to reclaim his position as the strongest in that school. He questioned who's planning to do something like that, and for the answer that filled the man, he was again willing to use both the girls who had been his strength all that time. At the time, one of his subordinates informed him that Sim Jae from then on was not someone to get bullied. After cutting her hair short and strengthening her dress, she looked like one of the most beautiful girls in the class, as per the rumors. Even though some had already proposed to her, she had rejected them. That chit-chat continued for a while, and when the leader of that subordinate group did not like that, he punched one of the men right in his face, calling them the reason why they were being called shit in the school. The conversation shifted, and they started to discuss the strongest man whom Jang Seok had taken down. However, the leader did not like that, because even after being the best once in his whole period, he decided to hide underground and not come up to challenge the man again. As they discussed their plan, Baldy declared that they needed to bring both of them after the class. None of his subordinates were answering the question, and the reason turned out to be very simple. Suddenly, a man walked up to them, asking if that plan was really going to work or not. When the ex-leader turned to find out or dared to speak in between, he saw Jang Seok, tall and mocking them about the plan they had just made in his regard. That man was supposed to be absent for the day. However, Jang Seok denied it, stating that even then, he had become a good person. This did not mean that he was not going to be late for a day to fear out. The leader hid his face, asking to see how he was going to stumble with a very scared face. The ex-leader was not able to think about what you should do and just moved away to punch the man with his little weak hands. As expected, the moment his hands touched the forehead of our protagonist, he felt like his hands were completely broken before he could even understand what was about to happen next. Jang Seok had already launched his hands and was about to attack him. His face connected right on the face of the leader, and with that attack, the man was on the ground drooling over his own spit. After declaring that being absent for one day does not mean someone is going to take his title, he asked the other two standing if they were going to fight with him again for their leader or not. Both of them started giving a clarification that they were not the ones thinking of something like that, and it was the leader himself. At that time, Jang Seok raised his hand, and while keeping close the distance and sitting on the shoulders properly, he wanted to tell them that they should get back to the track until they had the time for it. Such a kind gesture was never expected from the strongest person. However, both of them agreed as the man walked inside the school corridor. He found Sim Jao walking ahead of him, calling her a kiddo. He asked her if she did well, while on the other hand she was a bit more concerned about his health after hearing that Jun Soo was hospitalized after a battle with the gang war. Jang Seok, seeing that the girl was showing such care for him, realized that just 1 month ago he had been the one bullying her. Her current situation with asking those questions was assuring him that he had surely changed. Just then, his high senses caught something that looked bad. He found someone peeking on them from around the end of the corridor and behind the wall. He moved toward that direction, asking the girl to just stop for a while as he went back to check something. As expected, it was Jong, who believed she had been saved from being caught all that time. She was wondering why she did that and why she kissed the man right on the lips. Embarrassment was at its peak for the girl as she hid her face, wondering how all that had happened. Even though the atmosphere around that time had completely changed, she still didn't feel any kind of hate towards him. What the man was thinking about her at that moment was unclear. By that time, Jang Seok had already reached the adjacent side of the girl. the moment he called her name, asking why she was hiding there. A light screech and slap sound echoed through the corridor. Everyone was confused as it turned out that Yeonjong had slapped Jang Seok for making her stumble and startle without any information. Jang Seok did not mind and asked what she was doing while peeking at them. Before answering, she realized that Jang Seok was not even flinching a bit while having a conversation with her, and further wondered if that was really nothing for him. She did not like it and her hands started trembling, thinking that it was only her who was taking it with such higher considerations. Keeping that in mind, she decided to walk away from the place, but Jang Seok once again stopped her while grabbing her hand, asking why she was pulling off. The moment the girl turned, her eyes were filled with tears, running down her red cheeks. She continuously asked him to just let go. Jang Seok did not let go and closed the distance between them with a pure hug, trying to console her. He wanted to ask her to calm down and let it be so that they could discuss it later. As she cried on his chest, Jang Seok, confused by his own actions, realized that this was something he had never expected. Sim Ja, observing the scene, also felt embarrassed by the sight. Jang Seok took Eunjong to the top rooftop in order to console her, while she just apologized while sitting on a Tetra Pak, making him surprised. When they both were down, she was playing with her cheeks like they were balls. Then she asked her if she should come down or not. Eunjong was reading, just overwhelmed, wondering why he wasn't like that. She was going to ask him out or something out of nowhere. Even that lady contemplated it, making it too obvious for Jang Seok. The only reason for doing so was because she was so happy after hanging out with other delinquents and being beaten by her father. In the last few weeks, with him being the center of all things, she was going to live a normal life at high school or apologize for thinking that a delinquent like her could even date. Protagonist did not like that and asked her if she even thought that just changing her own life and attitude was going to heal the wounds of the others, and then told her that she should first apologize to them for whatever she did. Then John moved her head while Jang Seok sat aside, stating that no one was going to treat her. He would always be by their side since both of them were pretty similar to each other. Those words again made her expectations rise for sure. On the other hand, Sim Jae was thinking about what she saw in the corridor, remembering how her own friend had denied visiting with her the last day, while giving her the reason for visiting the place alone. She was not feeling well, and in her mind she should be congratulating. The wild image of the girl was still stuck in her mind. She was feeling frustrated for sure. While thinking all that, she saw some people converging toward a particular state and wondered what was happening as they closed the distance. He found someone asking about their daughter being taken away in the middle of school while the teacher denied it. Something unexpected happened as that person turned out to be Jang Seok's mother. As soon as she saw her, she grabbed her hand and started pushing her to take her to a location, while she denied it, just wanting to wait. All of these things were being witnessed by the Pole while the others were discussing if she really was a shaman, while looking at her clothes. Just at that moment, Sim Ha was lying on the ground and something started happening. He was not able to understand what happened just then, why something like that was visible to his eyes. For the cause of reconfirmation, he asked about it from Eunjong. For such a mishap, without wasting a second, he moved ahead downstairs in order to inquire what really happened. Down there, Sim Ja was asking the lady to wait as she needed to get the bag. However, the shaman was denying it from the beginning in her regards. Her daughter was never going to be in the school. Once again, hearing those words, she immediately asked for the reason behind it. The shaman informed her that starting from that day, she would be the one worshipping along with her. However, the girl did not like that. The only reason behind that was she had not even contacted her for a year and then, out of nowhere, asked her to leave the school. The shaman, as expected, slapped the girl right on the face, telling her that the only reason she was doing so was because if she didn't, her only daughter would die in her future. Telling her ability, she clearly saw that if she didn't leave the school, then she was going to die. Still, Sim Ha was not ready to leave the school because for the first time in her life, she had made friends and escaped the horrible bullying. In her regards, she was ready to die if she was going to have all that. The shaman was about to deliver one more hard slap on her face when the diary stopped her. She inquired of the man who did so. It was against her, stating that bullying was forwarded in the school, which was the basics. The shaman snatched her hands from her and with a scream, told everyone that it was a bad man, which was the demon who controlled her daughter's life, leaving Jang Seok totally stunned by that proclamation. Jang Seok asked for the reason for saying whatever she said, and what it meant that he was the one going to take her life. The shaman reconfirmed that he had been a re for her since all felt back as a different surrounding was completely visible, where it depicted that he had done all kinds of bad deeds. Such proclamations did happen, but all these things were pertaining to his previous life. Anyhow, there was some accuracy in it, as his soul was still 40 years old. Suddenly, Sim Ja came to his rescue, stating that he was a friend who had helped her more than anyone. Amidst their conversation, chats between the students who were watching the drama continued. They were shivering with thoughts and other things. The shaman added spice to the moment when she scared them while telling about the punishment. Everyone started to laugh while Sim Ja just stood silent. Not a single word was spoken. Suddenly Jang Seok spoke up and asked the lady to just go home for that day, leaving her totally stunned. Sim Jae, with trembling hands, tried to understand the meaning of him saying that. However, he turned around, leaving her confused and telling her that there was nothing he could do about that at that time. Sim Jae was no one to help, and others started chatting about him being so cool. Even after being the one who helped the girl the most, they were listening to the conversation. Even Sim Jae started to doubt, wondering what he had been doing all the time during the period of change. The shaman then took the chance to ask her girl to head out, and she agreed to it. Since then it turned to the shaman's house, where she was completely dressed as one of the ghost believers, while her daughter sat in front of her all gloomy, looking into her eyes. Even the mother felt guilty, but was doing so because it was the only way to save her life thinking about it. She called herself the worst, but ended up throwing a book right in front of her, telling her that these were the basics of becoming one of her type, teachings from the divine too. She wanted to tell her that even though she had the blood of her mother, she still needed practice, and it was the only way to be like her. Sim Jae did not deny it, as she was already aware of why her mother acted that way. Without contact, without any prior information, jumping into her life. It was because her mother never wanted her to get involved in all those things. She knew it all along, and at that moment, memories from the last few days flooded her mind, breaking her soul. She cried, thinking that if it was going to end that way, she had expected it, but it should not have happened to her like this. Being a mother, the shaman started crying too, with tears flowing like a waterfall. Just then, when Simji tried to pick up the book, it was picked up by the protagonist. He wondered, and as he opened the book, he saw those letters. There was a hitch for him from the start, as he would prefer learning an English word any day over it. Sim Jae was shocked to see his presence. However, the shaman wondered how he had arrived at that location. The protagonist, without entering, bowed on his knees. Then she said that her words were true, and she was the worst of them all. Without hesitating a bit, he declared that he had bullied her daughter for the past year, and that declaration made the shaman rage with anger. She started hitting him with her table fan, asking about his dad. It looked like she was waiting for an expected reaction from the protagonist, but he just shrugged it off, even telling her that hitting him once was not going to do it. She should hit him approximately 1,000,000 times. Suddenly, the shaman started to cry and asking what she had done to her daughter, but the protagonist skipped the expression and instead made a request to send Simja to school until she graduates, promising that he would risk his life to protect her.